ESPN, the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Today, from Alabama International Motor Speedway in Talladega, the Winston 500 being brought to you by Purolator, the first name in filters. For Pure Oil now and Pure Oil later, it's Purolator. By Budweiser, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. And by Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality, always has and always will. We have an absolutely beautiful day in Alabama today with the temperature at 73 degrees, sun is shining brightly, and there is hardly a cloud in the sky. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Talladega for the Winston 500. It's the world's fastest speedway, 2.66 miles in length, and the turns are banked at 33 degrees. But the speeds are slower this year because of the mandated restrictor plate by NASCAR. With me, two-time Winston Cup champion Ned Jarrett. Ned, what will that mean in terms of driving style today?
Well, it means that, first of all, they'll have to put the foot to the metal and keep it there all day long. They can simply run around here wide open, even though they are running 198 miles an hour, but it will require them to run very close together. Drafting will be so important, and if you get too far behind the car in front of you, you're going to lose the draft, and the first thing you know, you're going to be history as far as competition is concerned. It is a driver's track, especially now with the restrictor plate. I think we'll even see some bumping going on at those speeds.
Gary Nelson, who is the research and development head for Hendrick Racing, is also with us. And Gary, I'm sure this restrictor plate creates problems for the crew chiefs.
Oh, what a headache. You know, you get engines built to the peak performance, maybe 650 horsepower. You load the car onto the truck and you come to the racetrack and NASCAR gives you that restrictor plate. It gives you 400 horsepower. You know, it'd be like going to the grocery store with 600, or going to the shopping mall with $650. And come in, when you get to the end of the store, you find out you only have 400, and that's all you can spend. So it's tough for the crew chiefs, tough for the drivers, but it makes for very close racing for the fans.
Well, let's go to the pit area and call in one of our two pit reporters for the afternoon. First of all, here's Dr. Dick Bergeron.
The restrictor plates have made racing here at Talladega very, very intense. Passing is very difficult to accomplish, and as a result, pit stops will become more important than usual. Track position may mean everything toward the end of the race. Both tire manufacturers say their rubber can go the entire distance if necessary. Some smart team just may win this thing by not taking tires when its competitors do. Also working pit road with me today, my friend Jerry Punch. Jerry?
Well, Dick, the critical information for today's race didn't get collected yesterday in the final practice session or even Thursday during qualifying. And actually, it was collected 3 months ago at Daytona when these cars first ran the 1-inch restrictor plate. And what they found was that a few cars, and only a very few, could run almost 130 miles on one tank of fuel. One car that could do it was this Haviland Ford of Davey Allison. So, Davey, not only might you have the fastest car in the field today, you may be able to go the farthest on fuel.
Well, Robert Yates has really done his homework on the fuel economy, and we were one of the cars that could go the distance at Daytona in the 125, so we're just hoping that our economy is the same today and that we can go long periods under the green.
Anybody you got to be concerned about besides the old man behind you here, Dad?
Well, that guy sitting beside me is a pretty sharp guy, too, and there are several guys here that you can't count out until it's over.
One of the most unpredictable tracks on the Winston Cup Tour, Talladega here, USA. Stay tuned.
Well, Jerry, we'll be covering many of the same stories we've been following all year. For instance, the career non-winners qualifying inside the top 20. But the biggest story here is always the racetrack. Darrell Waltrip says this is a 3 on the driver difficulty scale. Daytona, on the contrary, is an 8 or a 9, but that's a very deceptive 3. At any time, this place will jump up and bite you bad. The spoilers will start out as flat as any racetrack on the circuit all year. That's not starting near the edge, that's starting over the edge.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Well, the time has arrived. We go to the starting line, and Senator Jim Sasser from Tennessee.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, for what you have been waiting for, I give you your Grand Marshal, Senator Jim Sasser. Gentlemen, start your engines.
This This is the second leg in search of the Winston Million. If a driver can win 3 of the 4 crown jewels, he'll collect a bonus of $1 million from the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. Bobby Allison won the first jewel in Daytona last February. The Winston 500 is coming right up. It's race day in Talladega. The Winston 500 is about to begin, and the 130,000 or so fans are gathered. The cars are still on pit road. They have not pulled out for their preliminary warm-ups. The car is still warming up on pit road. Well, the track description here at Talladega, it is 2.66 miles in length. The banking is 18 degrees in the tri-oval and 33 degrees in the bank, the turns. The track is 60 feet wide. We'll go 500 miles today, and the fuel range between 39 and 44 laps. 41 cars have qualified for today's event, led by Davey Allison, who will start on the pole for today's event, qualifying at 198.969 miles an hour in the Haviland Ford, car number 28. Alongside in row 1 will be Darrell Waltrip from Franklin, Tennessee, in the Tide Chevrolet, car number 17. In row number 2, it's Phil Parsons in the number 55 Crown Petroleum Oldsmobile. He'll be flanked by Bobby Allison from Hueytown, Alabama, in the number 12 Miller High Life Buick. Going to row number 3, it's Kyle Petty from Randleman, North Carolina, in the number 21 Citgo Ford. To his outside, the Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, car number 25, driven by Ken Schrader from Fenton, Missouri. Starting in row number 4, it's Bobby Hillen Jr. from Midland, Texas, in the Miller High Life Buick, car number 8. And Sterling Marlin from Columbia, Tennessee, in the number 44 Piedmont Airlines Oldsmobile. In the 5th row, it's Neil Bonnet from Hueytown, Alabama, in the Valvoline Pontiac, car number 75. And then Buddy Baker from Charlotte, North Carolina, in the Red Baron Frozen Pizza Oldsmobile, car number 88. The 6th row is made up of the Coors Ford, car number 9, Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, and Mark Martin from Batesville, Arkansas, in the number 6 Stroh Light Ford. The 7th row, Jeff Bodine from Chemung, New York, in the Levi Garrett Chevrolet, car number 5, and Ricky Rudd from Chesapeake, Virginia, driving the number 26 Quaker State Buick. Going to row number 8 now, St. Louis, Missouri's Rusty Wallace. He'll drive the number 7 Kodiak Pontiac, and Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, in the GM Goodwrench Chevrolet, car number 3. Greg Sachs will start in the 9th row. He's from Mattatuck, New York, drives the number 50 Dingman Brothers Pontiac, and beside him will be Lake Speed in the number 88 Twins Oldsmobile. Going to row number 10 now, it's Terry Labonte from Corpus Christi, Texas, in the number 11 Budweiser Chevrolet, and Rick Wilson in the Kodak Nomosmobile, car number 4, Rick Hales from Bartow, Florida. Going to row number 11, A.J. Hoyt from Houston, Texas, in car number 14, the Copenhagen Oldsmobile, and Jimmy Means in the number 52 Eureka Vacuum Cleaners Pontiac. As we look at the rest of the starting lineup and the cars now proceeding through the tri-oval, Ned, the excitement is really building. I think many people are probably thinking about what happened a year ago today here, but also are anticipating some great racing.
I think they are anticipating some very close competition, and I think it will be too, because with the restrictor plates, they will run closer together perhaps than we've seen them in a long time, and we've seen some great races here at Talladega. But as we mentioned at the top of the show, drafting is so important, but you got to run right on the back bumper of the guy in front of you. So we'll see drivers jockeying for position all day long, and sometimes we might see them jockey a little too hard and maybe get into someone and get into trouble.
Our in-car cameras today, one of them being carried by Cale Yarborough in the Hardee's Oldsmobile. As you can see, we have the car pointed out the rear of the race car. And now we swing it around and give you a front view as the cars proceed very slowly through the tri-oval here, building up the heat in the engines and in the tires, anticipating the green flag in just a few more laps. The other in-car camera will be carried by Michael Waltrip in the Country Time car. He had a very successful qualifying effort here on Thursday, good enough for 23rd starting position at 192.173 miles an hour. Good view from that car.
Talking about Cale Yarborough back there at the back of the pack, that's unusual to see Cale that far back in a Winston Cup race, but he just simply couldn't get the car up to the speed that he wanted to before qualifying. However, as they worked on the car, he got it to running better, he said. Not as well as he would like, because he would like for it to be at the front of the field, but he said, watch me, said, I'm going to be trying to come through the pack.
He qualified about 10 miles an hour slower than did Davey Allison and will start 37th. So now you can see the field is being led down the backstretch by the pace car. The word is from NASCAR that if all is well, they will receive the green flag this time around. And the green flag will be dropped by the honorary starter of this race, the mayor of Talladega, Alabama, George Montgomery. Beautiful formation as the 130,000 or so fans are all on their feet anticipating a start of this race.
Bob, if a race driver ever has butterflies, it's now. Once the green flag drops, then that, his concentration is so deep that he doesn't have time to think about anything else. But many drivers will tell you, even the veterans that have been around for a long, long time will tell you that in an event of this sort, when they look up and see that 130,000 people, the excitement that's building, that those butterflies are still there.
This is such a big spectacle, and the Winston 500 is about to unfold. Here comes the field down through the tri-oval. They're between turns 3 and the tri-oval. Remember, the start-finish line here is located near turn number 1. The pace car has pulled from the racetrack, and now the field is in the hands of the pole sitter, Davey Allison. To his outside is Darrell Waltrip. The pace begins to pick up just a little bit now. We're anticipating the green flag as the cars now begin to build up more speed. And there is the green flag, and the Winston 500 is on from Talladega, Alabama. It's Darrell Waltrip that's taken the lead from Davey Allison, who is running second. Bobby Allison sneaks up now and runs side by side with his son as the cars come off the 33-degree banking and head down the backstretch for the very first time. Darrell Waltrip to the inside, Bobby Allison to the outside. Then we have Davey Allison inside and Phil Parsons. It's a good battle between the Allisons. Davey on the inside and Bobby to the outside. Darrell Waltrip leads, and that's Phil Parsons, who is tucked right in behind Bobby Allison. Now they come off the banking to the 18 degrees of banking in the tri-oval, and they're about to complete lap number 1 with Darrell Waltrip showing the way. You can see how the air is disrupted as the vibrations coming from the cars actually shook our camera that's located near the racetrack. Waltrip leads this line of cars down the backstretch.
Well, we expected sort of a choo-choo train, Bob. That is, cars running very close together in line, but we didn't honestly expect it to be 2 abreast as we're seeing.
Boy, this is fast racing, restricted or not. They're probably over 195 miles an hour right there on your screen.
As a matter of fact, yesterday during the ARCA race, we saw speeds much higher than qualifying simply because of the draft, and I'm sure we'll see that today, where speeds could exceed 200.
They were running 4 miles an hour over their qualifying speed in the draft yesterday, and yes, it wouldn't surprise me to see them get over 200 miles an hour here today.
I think Bobby gave Davey a break and let him get in the line, but he paid the price. He lost the draft on that move, but Davey was on the low groove and was in jeopardy of going on back, and Bobby looked like he gave him a break.
3 cars out front, separated by just a few feet, and then this pack of cars, Bobby Allison and Kyle Petty are running side by side. As up front we have Darrell Waltrip, and now a battle for the lead as Davey Allison goes to the inside between turns 3 and 4 and wants the lead. He's got it as they come off the 4th turn. Phil Parsons right there now beside Darrell Waltrip looking for second position, and Phil gets second. It's going to be Davey Allison leading lap number 3 with Phil Parsons second and then Darrell Waltrip.
Boy, I saw Darrell's car fishtail on him going into the tri-oval. That air upset his car. He lost traction on his rear wheels, made the back end of it try to slide, and that is a handful at those speeds.
We're timing the lap to see exactly how fast they are going. Davey Allison, the leader, down the backstretch. Phil Parsons will look to the inside and may make a move here.
And Darrell Waltrip comes out to go with him, and sure enough, Phil is able to move right around with ease.
And that's an example of how the draft works and how you must have a partner when you go for the draft. Now, Bobby Allison moves into 3rd position. So in just a matter of a few yards, really, Davey Allison falls from 1st to 4th place. And now Phil Parsons is going to lead this lap with Darrell Waltrip 2nd, Bobby Allison 3rd, and Davey Allison 4th. There's the lap time, 48.9 seconds.
And that is about 195.8 miles an hour. So they're getting on with it, even jockeying around for position.
Single file formation now down the backstretch. Ken Schrader has moved into 5th place behind that fourth place car. There's the leader, Phil Parsons. From inside Michael Waltrip's car, you can see he's positioned right behind Rick Wilson in the banking. He is at the tail end of this long line of cars in the draft.
At least half of the field is in that first group of cars, and Mike Waltrip, as you say, is right at the tail end of that, and he's about to be passed by A.J. Foyt down on the inside.
There is Foyt battling alongside Michael Waltrip. Foyt had a very disappointing qualifying effort on Thursday, came back on Friday, however, and was the fastest second-day qualifier. He put a new engine in that car and also changed the ignition system. Here's Dale Earnhardt, among others, battling for position. That's Rusty Wallace there in car number 27. Also Terry Labonte involved in the scramble for position. Jeff Bodine leading Dale Earnhardt.
This is a group of cars that are all good drivers but didn't qualify that well. Now they're all trying to prove that they can get up to the front. They're racing each other and not making much ground on the leaders.
Well, we mentioned, Bob, that half of the field was in that lead draft. In fact, there are 22 of the 40 starters that are in that lead group.
Well, you can imagine Bill Elliott right there, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Bodine, Rusty Wallace, Terry Labonte, all right together, but they're back from the leaders. They're not used to running that far back. They're trying to get up to the front.
6 cars have separated themselves from this group, and here are the 6. Phil Parsons, Darrell Waltrip, followed by Bobby Allison, Davey Allison, Ken Schrader, and then Sterling Marlin. Here comes Darrell Waltrip. He's got Bobby Allison trailing along behind him. They go into turn number 3, and both of them are able to move past Phil Parsons, so Darrell Waltrip reassumes the lead now. That's Ken Schrader in the red car working the high side of the racetrack above Davey Allison, and Sterling Marlin is watching all of this from behind.
Well, Davey can be the big loser here down on the inside. The others are directly in line with each other. That's going to help them pick up speed, and it's going to drop Davey back to 6th position.
Darrell Waltrip crosses the line, leading lap number 7. So we're just underway in the Winston 500. 188 laps of competition this afternoon, live on ESPN. We are back at the world's fastest speedway. Bill Elliott last year setting the one-lap record of 212.809 miles an hour. This year, the top qualifying speed was just under 199. And positions are being changed here. Here are the top 6 cars, and positions change numerous times during the lap. Phil Parsons has now the lead. Ken Schrader is second. That's Darrell Waltrip third. Sterling Marlin fourth. And then the Allisons trailing. Bobby's on the high side of the racetrack. Davey moves into that 5th spot. Down the backstretch once again. This is the most competitive racetrack also in Winston Cup competition. In this race in 1984, there were 75 lead changes during the course of the event. That means there was a lead change less than 2 every 2.5 laps.
And Bob, that was only the lead changes at the start-finish line. As you mentioned earlier, many times they'll change 2 or 3 times in the course of a lap.
We have had 5 lead changes in the first 9 laps among 4 drivers. But for now, Phil Parsons is at the point, crossing the line to complete lap number 10.
Boy, Ken Schrader did a heck of a job to move that Folgers car up as far as he has come. He's up to second. I bet you he challenges for the lead here, and Darrell probably will help him go on by.
And I think we have seen in the early stages that perhaps that slingshot that we have pretty much discounted, the drivers telling us throughout the weekend it's not going to work. But we have seen that you can make a pass going into turn number 3 if you've got somebody to go with you.
That's the key, is having your partner, somebody that's willing to pull out of line and go with you. You can build up the momentum and just shoot right on by. We've seen it several times here already today, and we'll see it more.
Well, Ken Schrader's car got loose on the back end. Darrell's up close to him. That's causing the rear spoiler on Schrader's car to be a little less effective. It's a handful for Kenny to drive. He may settle in there in second. Let's see what he does.
There are the 6 cars in the lead pack. Then there's a little bit of racetrack back to 7th position. That is being held by Jeff Bodine, and behind him is Buddy Baker. We understand that Kyle Petty may be having problems.
He may be. He has definitely slowed down. He dropped to the inside of the racetrack and let all of those go by. He was near the front of that second pack, but he is slowing down now.
Well, Kyle went into this race with great hopes. He had qualified 5th fastest at 196.984, but there may be something wrong with the Citgo Ford. We'll be watching the car as it comes through turns 3 and 4 and possibly making a pit stop.
Sterling Marlin began to assert himself now up on the outside of Darrell Waltrip. Piedmont Airlines Oldsmobile. Sterling expected to run very good here today. He likes this racetrack.
Let's go to Jerry Punch in the pit area.
Well, Bobby Allison may have a problem early on here at Talladega. Not much of a problem. Maybe Gary Nelson can elaborate a little bit. The car Bobby's driving is awfully loose. Now, his Buick, he says he just can't get up and run in the draft because when he gets up with the car right behind him, his car gets even looser because there's no air on his spoiler. He had to drop at the rear of that lead draft to try to hang on to get a pit stop and maybe can bend that spoiler up a little bit. So Allison trying to fight a loose handling race car.
Well, you're right, Jerry. Bobby looks like he's opted to follow everybody. He doesn't want somebody behind him. His car is loose. Schrader's car is loose. Darrell's look like it's getting loose. Everybody, you know, the restrictor plate has brought nerves back into it, where Talladega used to just stand on and drive all day and hope you were there at the finish. Now it's how far do you want to take away on your rear traction? How far do you want to bend that rear spoiler back? And how much can the driver stand? How loose can he get before he has to back out of the gas?
They were 4 abreast as they crossed the finish line that time. And Jeff Bodine and Buddy Baker have caught now the other 4 cars that were running in front of them. 2 of them, however, have separated themselves from the rest of the field, running out front. And, of course, is Phil Parsons and Ken Schrader.
Bob, there's a car in the back of the pack that's being driven by Rick Jeffrey that has an oil leak, and he has been given the black flag, so he's going to have to make an unscheduled pit stop. In fact, he's coming into the pits right now.
Boy, oil on the track will add to those loose conditions because the driver will encounter the oil that he wasn't there the lap before, and all of a sudden the back end really takes off.
Well, Kyle Petty dropped out of line, may have a problem. Let's get a report from Dick Berggren.
Well, I'm with Leonard Wood, his car owner and crew chief. Leonard, why did Kyle drop out of line and drop back?
Well, he dropped down low and he ran into some oil where somebody blowing an engine down, and evidently they don't know it. And he said he liked the wreck, so he backed off and he's moved up a lane. Seems like he's okay.
Jimmy Means in trouble. We have trouble coming out of turn number 4. Jimmy Means is involved in the crash, and some other cars. And the
Dave Marcus in car number 71 is part of it.
A lot of cars sitting on the racetrack up there coming out of turn number 4. So the caution comes out for the first time.
Yeah, Dave Marcus, maybe Cale Yarborough, is that in the grass?
And Ken Reagan is involved. Cale Yarborough tries to get his car going again. The Hardee's Oldsmobile. He has it moving and now moves on to pit road.
Looks like it's doing some vibrating. He perhaps has a flat tire on the car. As you can see, the car really shaking as he comes down pit road. And look at the damage to the right rear of the car.
So Cale stops and they go to work on that machine.
Well, 15 laps into the race, it's time to stop if you've got chassis problems. You know, in this type of deal, yeah, here's Bobby Allison in the pit. Several of them are going to make adjustments. It's Jerry Punch and Bobby Allison's pit.
Well, Bobby Allison's crew working on the right side of that Miller Buick. Remember, Allison had a problem with handling. They came over and changed right side tires. They did not bend the spoiler up on the car. The reason being the spoiler tool they can use to bend the rear spoiler up and catch more air will not fit this spoiler. This spoiler is used primarily at Daytona and Talladega. It's essentially flat, and it won't fit the car. Allison's car getting 2 tires. He's now down and away.
Boy, you can imagine Bobby's not feeling too good about that because he lost all the positions by making that pit stop to get that spoiler adjusted. And if they couldn't adjust it, he's really going to have his hands full.
Eddie Bierschwell also involved in this crash. His car has suffered extensive damage to the front end, and it is down in the grass off of turn number 4. Now we have an in-car view of the crash from Cale Yarborough. This will happen, I believe, right in front of Cale.
Of course, he's following Dave Marcus in the Lifebuoy car number 71 as they come off of turn 4, and you can see the smoke up ahead, and their view gets very dim as they head into that smoke. And you can see somebody hit the car number 71 right in front of Cale, and then Cale gets hit.
You know, that's always a story. The drivers say, I saw the wreck, I let off the gas, and I waved my arm, and somebody hit me from behind. But it's the chain reaction time at these close conditions.
That was Mickey Gibbs in car 01 that hit Dave Marcus. And you can see that Cale Yarborough is pulled back into the pit area, and Darrell Waltrip is also in. Jerry Punch is right there.
Well, they've already put right side tires on the Tide Chevrolet, and Eddie Dickerson, Jeff Hammond, and the rest of the Tide crew now finishing the left side work. The Jack getting ready to come out from under Waltrip's car. It'll be Waltrip and Davey Allison racing down pit road. Bill Elliott still here in the pits getting service. Now his car is away. Also the car of Terry Labonte moving down pit road. 4 tire changes for all those cars.
We are under caution for the first time because of a multi-car crash coming off of turn number 4. We believe that there are no injuries as a result of the crash, but wholesale pit stops are being made in the Winston 500. We're back at Talladega where the caution flag is out because of an accident coming off of turn number 4. And here's a replay of what happened from inside Cale Yobarow's car. He was involved in the incident. It's actually happening in front of him right now.
As you can see, Cale went to the outside to slow down to give the cars behind him room to move around if they wanted to, and Mickey Gibbs drove on past and hit Marcus down on the inside, and someone hit Cale about the same time. And you can see the damage that's done to the right rear of his Hardee's Oldsmobile.
So a crash has slowed the field down from their race speeds of near 200 miles an hour. And as we indicated, the qualifying speeds were slower because of the 1-inch restrictor plate that was the result of an incident that occurred right here at this racetrack 1 year ago. We had a chance to study the events leading to that restrictor plate.
A year ago this weekend, this crash occurred here at Talladega. It caught the attention of the entire racing world. Bobby Allison called it a set of circumstances coming together. Circumstances that came as close as any incident ever did to changing the course of all motor racing. Miraculously, only one significant injury to a spectator, but Bobby's stunned look was mirrored by NASCAR. Their attention now was really focused on safety. NASCAR took immediate steps to stop flying cars for Superspeedway's Lexan windows on the passenger side to keep 200-mile-an-hour air out of the car. For ventilation, the driver's side window net remained but improved for quicker driver exit. To simply slow the cars down, a 390 carburetor was required for the next Superspeedway race, Daytona's Firecracker, in July. For 399 miles, the first laboratory test of the new car, a success, but coming down for the checkered. Kenny Schrader is sideways. Air surges inside and underneath. Schrader sails through the tri-oval, center fielded by Harry Gant. Bobby Allison, ironically, had won the race. But like at Talladega, the only real damage incurred in this incident was to the equipment. But enough to send NASCAR back to the drawing board for bigger and better plans, or should I say smaller. For the next Superspeedway, this February's Daytona 500, the same carburetor, but now an additional plate with smaller air intake holes required. Still trying to slow the cars down and keep them on the ground. This is the plate and its installation with an additional gasket and the original spacer that now draws less air into the combustion chamber. Dyno tests show 200 horsepower are subtracted. Schrader's pole speed is 16 miles per hour less than Elliott's in 87. But safer, there were mixed emotions.
As slow as all of us is running, there'd probably be trouble everywhere.
I love it. Get them down there about 190 miles an hour. I can drive the heck out of them right there.
Restrictor ate it all up. It made everybody the same speed, and that made it probably more dangerous than when we were running 210.
Again, no wholesale carnage, but another moment, this time in front of NASCAR's largest annual audience. That again steered the spotlight to speeds and safety. It should be noted that race car and racetrack get extremely high marks for safety in this wreck.
Well, the way they slowed them down didn't do the job that they wanted to do. What happens, you know, they was running 210 mile an hour, they slowed them down to 190, which looks good on paper. But the deal was it put too many cars running too close together, then that causes more accidents.
Safety, as always, was NASCAR's first concern in studying the plate. But some drivers thought the closer matched cars created danger. For others, their eyebrows raised at the lack of power. Drafting, long an important element, took on a new dimension. Do not break ranks.
To me, I just don't go as fast as you go. That's the name of the game.
You know, it really, I think, limited my driving abilities to be able to run fast and keep the car under control.
They took an approach that they thought would work, and as far as I'm concerned, it didn't work. So now we've got, or I feel like they should look at some other approach and do it a different way.
Well, I really felt that a small engine with a small carburetor would be very much more in tune with today's automotive world rather than a 700 horsepower engine with a restrictor plate that might tempt some of these guys to try to find a way to go around it.
Oh yes, that'll be one answer because the V6 is certainly not going to run as fast as the V8. You know, they pull about 274 cubic inches, where the engines we have now are 358 cubic inches.
But without question, for 88, the V8 is here to stay, but NASCAR continues to study hard.
You know, anytime we make a rule change like that, a lot of thought goes into it. Meetings are held with Mr. France, Mr. Richter, and myself, and we do not make rule changes just by the spur of the moment. But a lot of thought has gone into each of the rule changes which we have made.
The restrictor plate, right or wrong, is an answer for the cars only time will tell. Certainly, spectator protection now, however, has entered a new awareness. And NASCAR will always strive for two things: exciting racing, and probably most important, that this seat is the safest one in the house, as well as this one.
The history of the much talked about 1-inch restrictor plate in NASCAR Winston Cup competition. We are still under caution because of an accident coming out of turn number 4, which has eliminated 4 cars, and we'll tell you more about that in just a moment. We'll be back with more live coverage from Talladega. Cleanup is still going on out of turn number 4. 4 cars have been eliminated. Eddie Bierschwale, Mickey Gibbs, Ken Reagan, and Rodney Combs also involved, but still running. Cale Yarborough and Dave Marcus. Let's go to pit central.
Well, Bob, during that pit stop, as Ned and Gary both indicated, a lot of the front runners wanted to do extra work than what is normal, and it really shuffled the standings. Look at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place cars. Ricky Rudd moved up from 11th, Michael Waltrip from 17th, Bonnet from 16th, and Alan Kowicki from 22nd. They made probably what would be best classified as routine pit stops, where the people we've seen running in the top 5, people like Bobby Allison, for instance, did a little more work than what they normally would have.
And so Phil Parsons still has the lead, but then behind him, as Larry indicated, the standings are really shuffled from what they were before we had this wreck down out of turn number 4.
Of course, Phil Parsons did not make a pit stop. He is still leading the race. Ricky Rudd apparently did not make a pit stop, nor did the car number 30. Well, yeah, I think we did say that Ricky Rudd pitted, but Michael Waltrip was running back in that pack, and he's now moved up into the 3rd place. So those that made early pit stops got in and out quick, and there were a lot of the drivers that were running back there from about 15th to 30th positions that were able to come into the pits very quickly and before the leaders did, so they're up towards the front of the pack.
Yeah, that's always a tough thing here. Track position is so important here at Talladega. You got to position yourself from the beginning stages of the race to try and be up front for the finish.
One of those included in that group, Ned, is Dale Jarrett, who is now running 6th in the number 1 Haas Ellington car. In 7th position would be the number 12 machine driven by Bobby Allison. In 8th is Ken Schrader, 9th is Sterling Marlin, and 10th is Jeff Bodine, as the green flag comes out once again and we resume competition. Parsons gets the jump on the field and leads Ricky Rudd and Michael Waltrip through the 1st and 2nd turns. And guys, I don't know whether it just seems to me this way or whether it really is. The cars don't seem to have nearly as much pickup when the green flag drops as they do without the restrictor plate.
Well, definitely for the drivers. You know, last week they were at Martinsville, where you have the low gears and the acceleration, unrestricted motors, the smallest track on the circuit. Now they're at Talladega, the biggest track, with the restrictors, no throttle response. That restart caught several of them napping. They'll learn how to look like it. You got the best jump of any of them.
And here is a replay of this restart, and look at Earnhardt. He's down on the apron of the racetrack, almost in the grass, trying to pass some of the slower cars and pick up positions. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
Well, I was standing in Earnhardt's pit when he did that start, and I'm going to tell you what, he was right on the button with the green flag, and everybody in this pit knew just what he was doing. Every crew member had a smile on his face. Earnhardt almost had 2 wheels in the grass. I'm going to tell you what, he's on the gas every instant. He doesn't let anything go by, and that was worth about 10 car positions to him.
Exactly. He was 24th on the restart, and now he is 14th. He passed 10 cars. Buddy Baker on pit road.
An unscheduled pit stop for Buddy Baker in the Red Baron Pizza Oldsmobile. Change of right right side tires apparently had one going flat.
The right rear tire's flat. It looked like it had been rubbing on the fender. They may have had to pull the fender out a little. I'm not sure, but it was definitely a flat right rear.
And he's going to go a lap down as the leaders come around. And boy, a lap is awfully hard to make up here at Talladega.
And look at this group of cars scrambling for position. Waltrip, Earnhardt, Richard Petty, Terry Labonte, Kyle Petty, and others. 3 wide going into first turn.
Boy, that was close with Buddy Baker down there on the apron coming out of the pits also.
By the way, Joey Knuckles is now the co-crew chief on that Buddy Baker team. And here is the in-car camera from Michael Waltrip as he's got a lot of traffic behind him.
You can see what I was talking about, the chain reaction type accident. If Michael Waltrip were to let off the gas or hit the brakes because of something in front of him, nobody would have a chance behind him. That reaction time is so short.
Waltrip and Earnhardt are side by side through the trioval. Also side by side, Kyle Petty in number 21, and now he pulls alongside Darrell Waltrip and picks up a position. Terry Labonte is right behind Dale Earnhardt on the high side.
That car of Kyle Petty's is strong, Bob. I saw him earlier in the race that he was able to run down on the inside while the others were running in single file, and he was able to stick right with them. That means that his car is very strong, and he's showing that it is right now.
So despite the problem he had a few laps ago when he hit some oil and really had to get out of the throttle and lose several positions, that Citgo Ford is on the march toward the front once again. Look at this great racing. Rick Wilson at number 4 also in the battle.
Boy, are they driving their hearts out. All of them right there, so close, and they're so tense. There's so much determination with Darrell Waltrip trying to win, Terry Labonte, Dale Earnhardt, and they've got a long way to go up to the front, so they're all trying.
A.J. Foyt is also in this shot. He's right behind Richard Petty in the SDP Pontiac. A.J. Foyt in his Oldsmobile. Behind Foyt is Bobby Hill, and Benny Parsons is also in this group, as is Mark Martin. Being led right now by Kyle Petty. Now Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt hook up in a battle for position.
Now Kyle Petty has caught up to Davey Allison, so you got a large group of cars there. Of course, they're way back about, 15th to 25th position, but they're gradually gaining on the leaders. Or I think they are.
Yeah, when they get single file, they should gain on the leaders. Phil Parsons is having a pretty easy run at the moment up front with this battle going on in the back. So Phil Parsons, Bobby Allison, and Neil Bonnet all up front.
Also Ken Schrader, Jeff Bodine, and Ricky Rudd. Those 6 cars are running right together, nose to tail, on the racetrack. We are live at Talladega, Alabama for the Winston 500, and we'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Talladega, the world's fastest racetrack, the fastest 500-mile race ever run, was here in 1985 when Bill Elliott won at an average of 186.288 miles an hour. At the moment, Phil Parsons is leading the Winston 500. Bobby Allison in car number 12 is second. Ken Schrader in car number 25 is third. And Jeff Bodine in the yellow and white number 5 is fourth. And look at this group of cars. Michael Waltrip is leading them. That's Bill Elliott, also Dale Jarrett, Davey Allison, Lake Speed, Darrell Waltrip, and Terry Labonte. And here comes Kyle Petty to join the group. Alan Kulwicki there also in the number 7 Xerox Ford.
Well, you can see the bumps through the turns. You know, you think of a high bank super speedway as a nice smooth track, but it is bumpy. From this camera shot out of Michael Waltrip's car, you can see the bumps. When they hit the bump like that, it tries, especially with the low rear spoilers that they're running, it makes the car try to get light. Really, the tires get airborne for a split second, and the car will lose a little traction.
You can see Bill Elliott move around on the inside, and he was followed by Davey Allison, then Darrell Waltrip. Michael had no choice but to let him go and just sit there and hold his foot to the floorboard and hope he can pick up a draft. There goes Terry Labonte by. He said, my goodness, what's going on here? Let me get in line and get in the draft.
That's what happens when you get out of line, boy. You just go straight back.
Now Michael Waltrip and Lake Speed run side by side. Lake decides to drop in behind Michael as the cars go into the southern banking, turns 1 and 2. Well, look how fast the markings on the wall go by and the lane separations. That's an idea of how fast these cars are actually going.
Well, you can see from the shot of from in the car that the black or dark part of the racing surface and then the gray part. The gray part is kind of no man's land. You don't go up there unless you just are trying to avoid something. You can see the gray on the right and on the left and the dark in the middle. You want to keep your tires in that dark area because that's where the rubber is.
3 abreast coming out of the corner. And now here's another group of cars. Included in this group, Rick Wilson and Dale Earnhardt. That's Mark Martin in the blue car number 6. Bobby Hillin Jr. is involved in this fight for position. Meanwhile, here are the leaders. The first 4 led by Phil Parsons. Next is Ken Schrader, then Jeff Bodine and Bobby Allison. Phil Parsons has never won a Winston Cup race, but he had a tremendous qualifying effort here this weekend. We asked him about the qualifying and the race.
That we were the 3rd fastest car on Thursday. You know, I mean, Sunday's a whole, you know, the race is a whole different set of circumstances, but it's nice to know that you have that speed to start with. Now, you know, once you lay the spoilers back up and take the tape off the front end, you know, that evens things up some, so it'll be a little more even than it was on Thursday, but you know, hopefully we had one of the fastest cars, and hopefully it'll be like that today.
Well, that's certainly the way it is at the moment, as Phil Parsons is leading and has led the Winston 500 only once before. That was in 1984 when he led 4 laps. His best Winston 500 finish was in 1986. He finished 5th.
You know, it's interesting listening to Phil Parsons' interview there, and then earlier we had heard Benny Parsons' interview. If you didn't look at, they look a whole lot different, but they are brothers and they sound alike in the way they talk and the way they react to different things. They are brothers, but looking at them, they sure do look different.
Parsons, Schrader, Jeff Bodine, and Bobby Allison, the first 4, as we have completed now 34 laps in the 188 lap Winston 500. We hope you're enjoying this Sunday afternoon of racing. We've got a lot more to go. We hope you'll stay with us. We'll be right back. Back at Talladega, where Phil Parsons leads the Winston 500 with Schrader running 2nd, Jeff Bodine 3rd, and Bobby Allison in 4th position. Phil Parsons may be one of those drivers who hopes that the restrictor plate stays around a while. His best career finish ever was at the Daytona 500 with the restrictor plate in February. He finished 3rd and led 9 laps of that race, but now he's being challenged by the lead, and in fact he is being passed by Ken Schrader for the lead. And now here comes Jeff Bodine to take away 2nd place from Phil Parsons. Ken Schrader moves to the lead of the Winston 500, and a good battle for 2nd. Parsons and Bodine are side by side.
And Phil Parsons will have a pit stop coming up before too long because he did not pit during the caution flag.
Right, Jeff Bodine and Ken Schrader both at least got fuel in their cars.
So did Bobby Allison.
Phil Parsons elected to stay on the racetrack. He's going to have a pit stop coming up in the next 6 or 7 laps, so he's definitely looking towards the pits every time he comes by, listening to his crew chief, trying to decide when the best time is to make that pit stop.
3 wide across the line for 2nd position. You call it. Who is in 2nd?
Wow. Almost too close to call.
That was close. It's Talladega. It's just awesome. The size of it, the speeds, how close they can run. Just, it's amazing what the drivers are doing out there today.
Of course, it was the dream of Bill France Sr. back in 1969. He decided that he had built Daytona and saw what Daytona can do, and he says, I want to build a track that's faster and better than Daytona, and this is what he came up with. It is longer than Daytona. It's 2.66 miles as opposed to 2.5, and the banking here is 2 degrees steeper than at Daytona. And this awesome facility has given us some exciting racing and some exciting moments in the years. Darrell Waltrip, here is Rusty Wallace down on the inside of the racetrack. Davey Allison is there, so is Terry Labonte and Neil Bonnet.
So there's a lot of good racing going on all over the racetrack. Darrell Waltrip's car still looks very strong. He's moved up to the 5th position, and remember, he was back probably at least 15th after that round of pit stops during the caution, so he has moved back up through the field, and he is leading that pack as they're gaining on the leaders. You see, they now have them in sight. You can even see them on the screen.
We have experienced, though, in the first 37 laps of this race, groups of cars getting together. There will be 5 cars running in one group, and then a separation, and 4 cars, a separation of maybe 3 cars. What does that tell us, do you think?
Well, that tells you that a certain group of drivers like to run with each other for one thing, but another is that the cars just seem to be working well together. And if you get somebody that comes along like Darrell Waltrip came along and picked up the group behind him, and they want to hang on to someone like that. They know he has a good fast race car.
Jeff Bodine has gone into the lead, passing Ken Schrader here in the Tri-Oval. So now Jeff Bodine becomes a leader of the Winston 500. Bobby Allison runs third, and then Phil Parsons. And Jeff Bodine, by the way, has never led in a Winston 500, and this is his 5th start.
Here's the 33 car coming through the bank, and you can see the bumps in the bank. The 33 car, obviously we talked about him at Bristol having shock problems. Look at that, the sparks come out from under the car. He definitely has a problem with his shock absorbers. You know, it's such a big thing here. You don't think about shock absorbers. There's only one on each wheel, and the valving has to match your springs. I think that they may have to do something in that car. It's probably a handful for him to drive right there.
It's got to be tough on a racetrack of this sort. It's tough enough on a short track to have that kind of a problem, but boy, on a track that's 2 6/10 miles in length at the speeds they run here, it's doubly tough.
Oh, here again, I've seen him drive some awful handling cars. He may decide to stick it out because you would lose more time trying to repair it, but it looks like a dead or a bad shock or even a broken shock possibly.
We're watching the front pack. Jeff Bodine and Schrader running first and second. And then in third position is the number 55 car driven by Phil Parsons, and the front pack now begins to lap the slower traffic as the slower drivers stay to the bottom side of the racetrack, allowing the faster cars on the high side. Brad Knopfsinger there in the Sunoco car being lapped.
Phil Parsons has already gone over 100 miles, but as was said at the top of the show, at Daytona there were cars that were going 125 miles on a tank of fuel, so he might have another 8 or 9 laps to go before he'll have to make the pit stop.
Now in just a moment, a whole group of cars are going to be joining these three as Bobby Allison and Darrell Waltrip and Davey Allison are catching up to the first 3 cars.
And Bob, he might have intentionally dropped back to that third position just to do some drafting to try to conserve a little bit of fuel, as we see Harry Gant coming in for an unscheduled pit stop, perhaps to try to remedy that shock problem or whatever it was.
Yeah, they're opening the hood, they're looking, it looks like a left front shock, they're getting ready to change it. Yeah, shock on the left front. Yeah, there's the replacement there. You can imagine Gant on the radio saying, I can't drive this thing. You know, when we saw the sparks come out from under the car, that really upsets the car. A little bit of sparks is okay, you know, lightly dragging, but to hit that hard, it's got to be a handful.
Now we're beginning to see the choo-choo train form. Jeff Bodine rides to the high side of the racetrack. Phil Parsons is low. Ken Schrader in the red number 25 car is the leader, but here comes the rest of this pack, and they have indeed caught these first 3 cars.
Boy, Hendrick Motorsports is looking awful good. My boss, Rick Hendrick, you know, with the Folgers car of Ken Schrader, the Levi Garrett car of Jeff Bodine, and now here comes the Tide car all up front. I know Rick is smiling right now.
Rick Hendrick has 3 of the top 4 cars at the moment. Davey Allison, Terry Labonte, Bill Elliott, Sterling Marlin, and Bobby Allison now in the lead draft. Phil Parsons doesn't appear to be conserving anything. He stepped on the gasoline once again and passes Ken Schrader to take the lead again.
Oh, boy.
That car working very well for Phil Parsons.
This is really racing. I really enjoy watching this kind of race. It's side by side. You don't know who's going to lead the next time around. They just swapping back and forth.
Isn't it so much more fun to be up here in the air conditioning and watching the race and being a crew chief down there in the pit area where it's hot and
Oh, I don't know. I miss the strategy part. I would like to be in the pits calling shots on, and hopefully we come out on top. And if it goes wrong, then it's nice to be up here. Yes, sir.
Bodine and Waltrip now teammates running side by side for third.
Terry Labonte going to try to help Waltrip a little bit. He pulls up on his rear bumper and probably will. They didn't pull right on by Jeff Bodine. Although Bodine's not giving up now, he has some help on his back line.
Ned, do these guys get together with each other during the preliminary days of practice and qualifying and say to each other, let's take the opportunity to help each other if we can?
Well, yesterday afternoon in the last practice session, the cars would pull out on pit road and they would wait till there would be groups of 3 and 4 and they would go out together. Not that they were particularly looking for any individual, but they wanted to get cars that were running in their category of speed and run with them and sort of size them up, and then on the race day they could say, yeah, I can draft well off of him, or I can run faster leading. And so they do determine those things, not so much in collaboration, but just the way that it works out.
You know, I've been in that position, both sides of that position, you guys. We've had the fastest car in practice down here before, and every time we went out to practice, everybody wanted to draft us to see if they could keep up with us. And then also I've been here with one of the slowest cars, and we'd be out there trying to draft with somebody, and nobody wanted to draft with us. So it's really interesting the way things go.
All right, it's still Phil Parsons leading Ken Schrader, Darrell Waltrip, Jeff Bodine, Sterling Marlin, Davey Allison, Terry Labonte, Bill Elliott, and Bobby Allison.
Bobby still stays in the back of the lead pack. You know, he still hasn't repaired his problems, I don't think. He hasn't been challenging getting in between cars. The car behind him upsets the back of his car, and so he elects to stay behind that lead draft.
We've completed 44 laps in the Winston 500 live here on ESPN on this Sunday afternoon. Phil Parsons is the leader, and we'll be back right after this. Bob Jenkins, Ned Jarrett, Gary Nelson, Dick Berggren, Jerry Punch, and Larry Newber back at Talladega, Alabama for the Winston 500, and there is the lead draft. There are 9 cars in it. They're being led by Phil Parsons. Ken Schrader is second. Darrell Waltrip is third.
And Phil Parsons slows.
Yes.
He's out of gas.
Phil Parsons may have stretched it too long. Out of turn number 2, the car dives to the inside. He is struggling to the pit area.
He has gone about 122 miles on that, or a little over 122 miles on that tank of fuel. So I think he is definitely out of gas, and he did stretch it a little too far. And I'll tell you, when you have to coast back to the pits from where he ran out coming off of turn 2, that's a long way around this racetrack. He ran 125.02 miles before it ran out.
Boy, that is a long, slow run, too, to go all that way.
And I have just complimented myself because prior to the start of this race, when we were kind of kicking around who we thought was going to win, I said I thought Phil Parsons was going to do it. And indeed, the car was working well enough for him, but he just took a chance that didn't work for him and ran out of fuel. And now he's going to struggle hard to get back in the competitive situation. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
Well, this engine was running when Phil Parsons came into the pits. If he was out of gas, he found some somewhere on the speedway. Leo Jackson is spraying ether into the carburetor. That's what they have to do to start an engine that's out of gas. It's also very dangerous for the engine. Parsons gone with fuel only. He took no tires.
Okay, Parsons coming out of the pits now. The leaders are coming into the trial. Well, he's going to be close to losing a lap. He may, if he can get up to speed quick enough, he may save being a lap down, but it's going to be awful close.
Yeah, I don't think he can get the speed that quick, Gary. Now, when we said he ran out of gas, he felt the car cut off and he pulled it to the inside, and after he got on the level part of the racetrack, he was able to pick up enough fuel to get it to running again and picked up so he didn't have to coast all the way back in. So at least that helped him a little bit, but the leaders are coming up on him. They're running at full speed, and he's still trying to get his speed. And here at Talladega, it takes over a lap to get your car up to as fast as it will actually go.
Yeah, those restrictor plates really have taken away the acceleration on the cars. The high gear ratios you have to run with the restrictor plate has really caused them to take a long time to get up to speed.
Well, they are approaching Phil Parsons, who is just ahead of this lead draft. Let's go again for another report from the pit area.
Well, the man who literally owned Talladega for a number of years, at least the front row and pole, was Bill Elliott. But Elliott has been disappointed, to say the least, this week with the carburetor restrictor plate. He did not run well at Daytona. They were not optimistic today. But right now, Elliott, from his 11th starting spot, is climbing his way slowly and surely toward the front. And they're very optimistic here. Ernie and Dan, all the guys out here in the Coors pit, waiting for Bill to make his move to the front.
Well, he's already in 4th, Jerry, and is running very well. He's right behind Jeff Bodine and Sterling Marlin, and now the leader of the race, Ken Schrader. So Elliott definitely in a good position. Waltrip is behind him, Davey Allison behind Waltrip, and then Terry Labonte. Another big group of cars running behind the leaders here. Included in this, Rusty Wallace in car number 27, then Lake Speed also, and our in-car camera, the Country Time car driven by Michael Waltrip. Right ahead of him is Rick Wilson. Watch the tachometer, the big dial right ahead of Michael Waltrip on his dashboard.
Yeah, that's pointing at close to 7,000. He's under 7,000 RPM. You can hear him lift on the gas pedal just a little bit. You shouldn't be doing that here at Talladega. You should be able to hold it to the floor. He definitely is getting a scare from the car being loose, and he has to lift a little bit. That's the difference between being the leader and being back in the pack.
And there, how close is Michael to Rick Wilson from the way we see it. Wilson in the number 4 car. Back up front, meanwhile.
Well, they have not caught Phil Parsons. Now he has the help of some cars that they're lapping, so Phil Parsons got his speed up pretty quickly and has been able to maintain that distance and picking up a little bit of draft here from some cars that he's lapping. So Phil Parsons still in the lead lap. He needs a caution right now.
Boy, they're getting ready to lap Richard Petty, and Richard seems to be running with about the same pack of cars he was running with in Daytona when he had his accident. I bet he's holding his breath right now.
Phil Parsons is running in the 27th position right now, so he's the last car on the lead lap, or was before he came up upon that group.
They're trying to lap him. Phil is trying desperately to stay on the lead lap. He got the car almost on the infield in the backstretch there as he struggled to maintain that lead lap, but it is going to be close. Schrader and the others are breathing down his neck. Let's see what happens here in the tri-oval. If Phil can indeed stay ahead of Ken Schrader and stay on the lead lap. Look at Elliott working the inside of the racetrack.
Bill Elliott has methodically picked his way right up there. Of course, he's been in this lead pack since the caution flag, but he has just sort of easily picked his way on up there into the top 5, and his car is working very well. He might be a sleeper in this race, even though he used to be the absolute favorite every time they came here.
Here's how it was a lap ago in the backstretch. Watch Phil go way to the inside to try to stay ahead and keep on the same lap as Ken Schrader.
Boy, Phil's doing all he can to keep on that lead lap. He knows the other guys will have to stop for gas in the next 10 or so laps. If he can just stay in front, if the caution comes out, he'll gain his lap back, or if the other cars all have to make their pit stops.
So this is the same scene we saw about 10 laps ago. Parsons leading. However, this isn't the situation right now. Phil Parsons trying to stay on the lead lap as Ken Schrader and Sterling Marlin and Bill Elliott try to pass him. Now let's see what happens. Parsons is high on the racetrack. Schrader on the low side. Coming out of the second corner, Schrader is sideways.
Oh, Ken Schrader spinning down the backstretch.
He got on the inside of Phil Parsons, and the car just broke loose, and I'll tell you, that's amazing.
Beautiful
that he went
job.
all the way around.
And did you notice, guys, that the car got just a little bit airborne, but those safety regulations that NASCAR has built in with the glass on the right side and the skirts may have saved that car from turning over.
Very definitely could have. Here's the hand signal by Michael Waltrip for the drivers behind him to slow down. Remember, he was running right in the middle of a big pack of cars. Of course, they were running behind that spin of Ken Schrader.
Unbelievable driving by Ken Schrader. I just can't imagine him saving that car. Look at that.
Oh, at near 200 miles an hour.
Tires aren't even touching. Tires aren't even hardly touching the ground.
Yeah.
Another 360.
Right front tire blows out.
And then
look at him save that thing.
Oh, just unbelievable driving by Ken Schrader. Here's another angle of it.
Well, he gets down on the inside, and when he does, his car gets a little loose, and it goes around. Of course, he's a sprint car driver. He's accustomed to driving them sideways, so he does a beautiful job of getting it down out of the traffic, out of the way of the other cars, and, of course, keeps on around, and Phil Parsons was able to go all the way around, and he'll be back in the lead lap. Now let's go to Dick Bergman in the pits.
And Schrader's got a problem. One of the problems is with the right front tire flat, they haven't been able to get the jack underneath it. Took 3 crew members to get the car high enough in the air to do that. In addition, the window, then they still don't have it under there properly. They're literally lifting this car off the ground. They're having problems. Oh, and the jack fell again. This is the worst pit stop you could have at this moment. They're having problems with the jack on the right side of Schrader's car. Nothing has happened yet to the automobile. He is sitting, he has moved his head forward in the wheel. Even Schrader can't believe it. They still don't have the right side of the car up. Now, finally, they've got a jack properly underneath it, and up they go. Pit stop's going on up and down pit road.
Yeah, Kenny's losing a lap right here. Everybody's just now lapping him. It's a shame. He's my hero for the day. Ken Schrader did one heck of a job.
Without question. Sterling Marlin in for a pit stop. They're going to change rubber on all four sides of that. There's the shredded tire from Schrader's car. And the number 12 machine of Bobby Allison is also on pit road. Dale Earnhardt is now pulling out of the pits after having completed service on the Goodrich Chevrolet. Terry Labonte also moves out. So does Jeff Bodine.
Boy, what a traffic jam that pit road is. Everybody wants to get out quick, get up to the front of the pack. They don't want to be back there in the back on a restart.
So some excitement on the backstretch. There is Phil Parsons, who was able to save going a lap down because of the little spin there that Ken Schrader took down the backstretch, and now Phil Parsons have received some service. You can see how tight the pits are even here at Talladega, as he had trouble getting his car out from behind Neil Bonnett's car that was also in for some service. And so Phil Parsons beginning to build up the speed and to catch up with the others. Well, we saw Michael Waltrip using some hand signals there to the drivers behind him. Here's a track fact. Track facts are brought to you by the Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug.
Did you ever wonder how race drivers communicate with each other on the racetrack? They do it by hand signals. Here, Ken Schrader sees trouble ahead. He waves his hand to signal the drivers behind him. Somehow, he drives right through the wreck. There are times when the hand signal is used differently. If one driver makes a move another doesn't like on the track, he gets the signal another way. Maybe the type you might have used driving down the highway.
Hand signals very important. There is the work that's going on the Ken Schrader car. They appear to be replacing the windshield on that machine, or they're about to. Ken Schrader spinning on the backstretch while leading the Winston 500. It has caused a scramble of position once again. We'll sort it all out and be right back to Talladega. The Winston 500 is under its second caution period of the afternoon. It came out on lap number 57. We're currently working lap number 59. And the caution was a result of the spin on the backstretch involving Ken Schrader. And here is a replay trying to go low, trying to put a lap on Phil Parsons.
Phil Parsons, of course, had stopped for gas, and Schrader, the back end, just goes out from under him as he gets under Parson, and around he goes. But amazingly holds on to it.
You could see when he was alongside of Phil Parsons on the inside, the car was already completely sideways before you saw any tire smoke. That meant the tires weren't even touching the ground. That's why he spun out.
Darrell Waltrip has come in for another stop, and they're going to lift the hood on that car, so this is more than just a routine pit stop, and a tough break for Darrell Waltrip.
And he was one of the favorites in this race.
Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, you need a tough break for Darrell Waltrip. They have broken the shock mount off of the frame on the right front of the car. The bottom right front shock mount is broken off of the frame, and Waltrip, they just can't drive the car. He cannot handle the car on the racetrack at almost 200 miles per hour, and they are pretty much helpless. They're going to try to tie the shock down to give him some support. That's all they can do right now. Trouble again for Darrell Waltrip and the Tide team. Let's go up pit road to Dick Berger. Dick?
Well, Jerry, you're looking at the debris of a spin. Schrader didn't hit anything. This is the right front tire you're looking at. And what you saw just before we went to break was they were cutting the right side window. The reason they had to cut it is these cars are going so fast that they actually can spring when the car spins out. They couldn't get this window into the automobile. They couldn't get a right side window on it at all. So they cut it down and they put a window together with pieces and tape. And Schrader frustrated, but he's back out there on the speedway and he's not going to give up. He's going to try all afternoon. You can count on that.
And again, we will tell you that the reason there is glass in the right side of the car and a little skirt on the bottom of it is simply because NASCAR thought that it would be better aerodynamically to keep the cars on the racetrack when they do get sideways or turn backwards. And indeed, it did work when Ken Schrader got backwards and sideways on the backstretch. Pit Central, Larry Newber.
Oh, Bob, for Gary and Ned, couple comments. First of all, the drivers' meeting, they were very specific that right side window has to be in. So even if it is damaged, it is a requirement that you come in and replace it. That's why that was going on. Also, the inner liner, I think, played a little bit of a role in Schrader's spin. Yeah, both the inner liner and the outer tire eventually went, but as Kenny was coming around the final time, the outer tire burst first, and the inner liner lasted just a few split seconds longer, long enough to allow Kenny to save it.
An unbelievable job of driving by Ken Schrader. And now here we go again. The green flag has fallen, and look at some of the drivers' pickup positions. Ken Schrader literally to the grass of the tri-oval.
And wow, he blows off the leader. He was way back near the back of the pack. His timing was either perfect or he jumped the flag, but he has blown them off.
Well, the flag was waving, at least I think it was, from Harold Kinder.
The NASCAR states in the rules that if you stay in line till the green flag waves, you can do anything you want once the flag is waving.
That's on a restart. Of course, at the start of a race, you do have to stay in line until you cross the start-finish line. Now, we see Kyle Petty down on the inside of Davey Allison. Kyle Petty too soon during this caution period and went a lap down. He's trying to get back in the lead lap right now.
And Schrader, did he only lose one lap? So he's technically now back on the lead lap, leading this group of cars. The leader of the race is Davey Allison there on the outside of the racetrack. And Dale Earnhardt, Sterling Marlin, Terry Labonte, Bill Elliott, and Lake Speed are behind him. There is Earnhardt running right behind Davey Allison, the leader of the race. Look how close the cars come.
That's a good view of that side window from inside the car. There's an air duct there to get air to the driver. That is plexiglass or Lexan material that is flexible. It's a real hard plastic like they would use on the windshield of an airplane. That is the side window that NASCAR has put in the cars. There's a duct there to duct air into the driver's compartment.
Cale Yarborough, of course, is a lap down, but he's right in the thick of that front pack of cars, so he has a good view of what's going on, giving the fans a good view, too.
This is the way it looks from the outside. Our in-car camera being carried by the orange and white car of Cale Yarborough.
Boy, Ken Schrader couldn't quite hold it. He fell back a little bit.
Jeff Bodine is the leader of the race now.
And Kyle Petty has gotten back in the lead lap, but he's about to go a lap down once again as Bodine pulls around him, pulls Schrader with him.
And Schrader is now also a lap down. Let's go again to Pit Central.
Well, we've seen so many cars run competitively at the front and the seeming ability to run in the #1 position. I think that's really having an effect on scrambling the standings during pit stops. Everybody is trying to do as much as they possibly can because everybody is seeking for that little extra added advantage that so far has been really difficult to find and hold on to. I think the interesting driver in that list is Bobby Hillin Jr., who's shown right now as they exited the pits in 5th position. Remember, Bobby Hillin Jr. became the youngest driver to ever win a Winston Cup race. He won it on a super speedway. As a matter of fact, it was this one. Hillin is coming off of a week where he also performed very well. He comes into today's race with a great deal of confidence.
So Bobby Hillin Jr. running in 5th after the pit stop. He moved from 8th spot. Jeff Bodine, the leader. Ken Schrader, the 25 car, is a lapped car. Davey Allison in the number 28 machine is running in 2nd position.
And here's Kyle Petty trying to move on the inside of Davey Allison. Again, he is 1 lap down.
Dale Earnhardt got right back up to the front again. He fell back a little bit before that caution flag. I'm sure he made some adjustments. His crew made some adjustments to the car. Let's see if he can hang in there a little better this time.
They also got him out of the pits very quickly, Gary. That's one thing that helped to get him up to the front.
Oh, Devin, that's almost, you almost know Earnhardt's going to beat everybody out of the pits. He's got such a good pit crew.
Crashing on Dale Earnhardt is Sterling Marlin. And the number 44 Piedmont Oldsmobile. Darrell Waltrip in car number 17 is struggling to get back into a better position as he has had some trouble in the pit area, and Jerry Punch can further explain what happened to Darrell.
Well, this huddle of crew members beside me is Darrell Waltrip's crew chief, Jeff Hammond, and the crew trying to decide what they're going to do. Jeff, we've already told the folks you've got a broken shock mount. What you going to do? How you going to fix it?
Well, we got a couple of welders coming right now. As a matter of fact, they're coming back in pits with one right now. And we really need a caution flag. If we got a caution flag, Jerry, we can fix it and everything will be fine. Darrell's just having right now hang on the best way he can. And it's not very pretty out there. I can see right now it's bouncing all over the place, but he's doing a super job. Hopefully we won't get a lap down. It's a little bit of bad luck, but I think we're going to be okay. If you just get a little bit of a caution here, we'll fix it.
Jeff Hammond has told his driver to drive your heart out. Hang on to that car. I know it's going to be tough, my friend, but we're going to get the welder here as soon as possible to get you in and fix it.
Well, we've got 2 Hendrick cars up front here that we see on the screen. One the leader, one trying to get his lap back. And then we have Darrell Waltrip back there with a broken shock absorber. Jeff Hammond sounded awful optimistic about it, but I'll tell you, that is a tough job to try and weld a new shock mount on the lower A-frame before you get lapped by the pace car. You get about 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes to work on the car. Then you got to send him out. You get another 2 minutes when he comes back. You're going to be racing that pace car. It's going to be a tough job for Jeff Hammond and his crew.
Jeff Bodine and Ken Schrader have separated themselves from the group of cars running behind as 130,000 plus fans look on at the Winston 500. Back at Talladega for the Winston 500 that's being led by Jeff Bodine, but this guy, A.J. Foyt, is doing a great job out there. He's running in the lead draft and is 7th currently on the grid. A.J. Foyt, who had a terrible qualifying effort in the Thursday round, but came back the second day to set the quickest time, and he's feeling pretty racy out there. You can tell it.
Yes, he is, and he loves running in close competition, and especially if it's up with the leaders. And this is the first time we've seen A.J. in quite a while in the stock car race, able to run up there with them. But he's running right behind Phil Parsons, who's making a good run back up towards the front. He was, I think, like 22nd of the restart of this race, and he's moved up into the top 10. And A.J. borrowed an engine from Phil Parsons' crew to qualify with that second day, and got him a good qualifying run.
It's A.J. Foyt's first Winston 500 start since 1983. He finished 34th that year. The lead, Jeff Bodine. Now, Ken Schrader again is a lap down because of that spin that he experienced on the backstretch. Let's go down to the pit area. Dick Bergman, who's with the owner of these two cars and Darrell Waltrip's, Rick Hendrick.
And Rick, what I'm wondering, since you own both of the cars that are running up front and Schrader's a lap down, are you going to ask Bodine to let him by so he can pick up his lap? What do you do in a situation like this?
I watch. You know, it's a leader's job to keep the cars back. You know, I'd hate to see Kenny a lap down as good as he was running, but I guess those two guys are going to decide that if there's an opportunity for a caution. But I just have to sit and watch.
Rick Hendrick sitting back here watching with the rest of us. Quite a battle. Schrader's got to get his lap back if he hopes to win this thing.
Boy, you know, being in the pits like that where Rick Hendrick is, and, you know, the Folgers crew, the whole crew, Ken Schrader tells them on the radio, yeah, I spun out, I need to come in for tires. But nobody knows in the pits yet what a job Ken Schrader did of driving. Rick Hendrick, when he sees the replay of this, he's got to be proud of Ken's driving ability. Plus, Ken spun in front of Jeff Bodine and Darrell Waltrip and a whole pack of cars. They all missed him. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it won't be until probably later tonight or sometime tomorrow when they get those video cassette recorders rewound and they take a look at this again that they'll understand how great a job that Ken Schrader indeed did. Well, the last lap, Jeff Bodine turned at 195.031 miles an hour in 49.13 seconds. Look at this pack of cars behind the leaders. Lake Speed is there, so is A.J. Foyt, Rick Wilson, Phil Parsons, Sterling Marlin, Kyle Petty, Terry Labonte, and so is Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt.
Well, you can see when they cross those bumps, the whole car bounces, and when they're in a pack like that, they all seem to bounce. And that isn't really ideal for the handling. You have to run such stiff springs here at Talladega because the banking is so steep and the speeds are so high. But then when you hit a bump, you've got to control it with the shock absorber. And the stiffer the spring, the stiffer the shock has to be. And it's really a tough job to get that right. We've already seen two cars break shocks. We'll probably see more before the day's out because those bumps are just brutal on the shock mounts.
Phil Parsons is passing cars in an effort to get his lap back, and here comes Kyle, who is also trying to get his lap back.
No, Phil, remember, he did not lose the lap. He got back in the lead lap when Schrader spun, so he's running towards the front four position, and he's picking them off one at a time and able to do it down on the inside. That car is strong.
And you got to have a tremendous amount of respect for your fellow driver when you're running this close. You got to trust him to do exactly what he has to do on the banking running at this speed.
Awful lot of talent right there on the screen. Right in that little stretch of pavement, there is so many drivers. Bill Elliott, Terry Labonte. Here comes Phil Parsons on the inside. They all have to trust each other. Davey Allison and Dale Earnhardt all right in there, so close.
Well, gentlemen, for that car number 55 to pull up on those cars that he is passing now, pass them down on the inside. Now, we said at the top of the show, when you get out of line, you can watch yourself go to the back. That's not the case with Phil Parsons. He's able to hang with them and even pass them.
But you know, this is the kind of thing that happened to Ken Schrader. He was on the inside of Phil Parsons, and his rear end of his car got light and caused him to spin out. Now, here is Phil Parsons on the inside of Dale Earnhardt. hoping his rear tires keep on the ground. He hope he can keep that traction. He should have probably more spoiler on the car than Ken Schrader did to be able to pull off that kind of an inside move.
Pretty impressive performance here. There you can see some hand signaling going on there as Davey Allison in number 28 acknowledges Phil Parsons right behind him.
Yeah, they know that they have fast cars. Davey knows his is fast. Phil Parsons knows his is fast. They're saying to themselves, let's line up, let's stay together and see if we can pull away from Earnhardt, Elliott, Lake Speed, and A.J. Foyt.
There is Jeff Bodine leading the Winston 500. He and Ken Schrader are by and large pulling away from the rest of the group, although Schrader is a lap down. Davey Allison is running in second position, followed by Dale Earnhardt, Phil Parsons, and Bill Elliott. The Winston 500 at Talladega, Alabama. For this race, the most lead changes in 1986, 26. And we so far today have had 12 lead changes among 6 different drivers. Now here's the situation. Jeff Bodine in the Levi Garrett yellow and white number 5 Chevrolet is the leader. The car right behind Jeff is driven by Ken Schrader, and he is a lap down because he spun down the backstretch a few laps ago. Running in second position is the number 55 car of Phil Parsons. In third is Davey Allison. Fourth is Dale Earnhardt, and fifth is Lake Speed. Here comes Phil Parsons. He is third, and what a gallant performance he has displayed in the first 77 laps of this race.
Well, that is something, you guys.
He has really come up through that pack, and Davey Allison recognized that, and I'm sure his crew told him, said, hey, go ahead and let him around, and let's see if we can't gain some distance on Jeff Bodine. He's getting away, and you can see those two are pulling away from that pack. And Gary, that's very hard to do for 2 cars to hook up and pull away from a pack that's running as tight as those are back there.
Boy, I guess that shows the strength of Phil Parsons' car. He's pulling Davey Allison with him.
Now here comes A.J. Foyt on the inside. Is he getting out of the draft, and is he losing positions?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, maybe. Here's Kyle coming right in behind Foyt. That may help, but Kyle, no, he's moving to the inside and making it a 3 abreast formation out of turn 4.
Yeah, I don't think AJ's car is as strong as Phil Parsons was, that Phil could go down on the inside and make those moves. And Darrell Waltrip with that broken shocks coming right on down on the inside. He's doing a whale of a job driving that car.
Boy, he sure is. He's outrunning a lot of the competition that has all of their shock absorbers. You know there's a lot of people holding their breath in that turn right now. To run that close and with the traction, you know, they've already seen Ken Schrader spin out. Nobody touched him. It was just close enough where he got into some dirty air and it upset the back of his car. All of these cars are in dirty air right now, and they hold their breath every time they get to the turn.
Darrell Waltrip continues to pass cars. He is running as fast as he can with that problem on the car. And here's Kyle Petty dropping back a little as A.J. Foyt goes inside and Rusty Wallace goes outside.
What happens, a move like Kyle Petty there, they're holding their breath lap after lap, and all of a sudden they say, it's too much, I got to back off, and he falls back a little bit. It's the traffic around you that causes your car to handle badly.
Now, Dale Jarrett had followed Darrell up through the pack. Dale's car seems to be working better on the high side of the racetrack, and he saw Darrell down on the inside, so he said, let me try that, but Dale is going back towards the back now. As a result of it, his car is simply not working that well down on the inside. That's the Portland Buick of Hoss Ellington he's driving.
23 cars are on the lead lap at lap number 80. We've got 108 more laps to go. Just to give you an indication of some of the cars that are indeed on the lead lap, of course, Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons and Davey Allison, Dale Earnhardt, Lake Speed, A.J. Foyt, Sterling Marlin, Rick Wilson, Bill Elliott, Bobby Allison, Terry Labonte, Darrell Waltrip, Rusty Wallace, Dale Jarrett, Michael Waltrip, Greg Sachs, Mark Martin. The number 7 car of Alan Kulwicki is on the lead lap. So is Bobby Hillen Jr. Ricky Rudd is running in 20th position on the lead lap. Neil Bonnet is 21st. In 22nd position is Benny Parsons, and 23rd, the last car on the lead lap, is Brett Bodine in car number 15. So those are the 23 cars that are still on the lead lap as we are moving through the Winston 500. There is the leader, Jeff Bodine from Chemung, New York, in car number 5. We'll be back with more of our live coverage on this Sunday afternoon of the Winston 500 from Talladega. are back at the Winston 500 in Talladega, where Jeff Bodine leads the race after 83 laps. Ken Schrader is still trying desperately to get his lap back, and every now and then, as he is doing right now, he pulls alongside Jeff Bodine. But so far, Ken has not been able to pass Jeff and officially get that lap back.
They need to watch out, because if they run side by side for too long, Phil Parsons and Davey Allison will catch them. They have been slowly gaining on them anyway, but if they do catch them, Ken Schrader is going to have to deal with 2 other cars, 3 cars total to deal with the race to the yellow flag if a yellow does come out.
There you see the interval between first and second position, and Darrell Waltrip is in the pit again. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, this is not the pit stop they wanted. They planned to bring him in and weld the shock mount on, and Darrell Waltrip was just trying to drive and hang on to the car, but Darrell just radioed in and said, I think something just happened to the engine. The car just tended to shudder a little bit and shut off. I think it's over for Darrell Waltrip. Well, Jeff Hamlin shakes his hands back and forth. Waltrip begins to peel the Velcro off the back of his gloves, and what was going to be a good day for the Tide team turns into a short day as Waltrip now takes the glasses off and will climb out of the car.
Second fastest qualifier, Darrell Waltrip, 198.306 is in the pit area, and the hood is up on that car. It's something more serious than just the shock that bothered him earlier.
They're looking under the car and under the hood. It's almost as if he said, I've got a bad vibration. I'm going to come in and you guys check it out. They don't seem to be, it looks almost terminal though.
Well, Darrell Waltrip had led only 1 lap in the last Winston 500s. That was in 1955. The best finish in this race, 11th in 1987. He did have wins in 1977 and 1982. We are back at Talladega, where Jeff Bodine continues to lead the Winston 500, but the interval between first and second is definitely getting closer, as remember, the 25 car of Schrader is not the second place car. He's a lap down, but Phil Parsons and Davey Allison are hooked up in a draft together, and they are definitely catching the leader, Jeff Bodine. Now, just before we saw Darrell Waltrip come in for his pit stop, we checked the interval between first and second, and it was 4.5 seconds. Now, we're going to be getting another interval to see if indeed Parsons is closing in, and I think the evidence will indeed point to that.
Yes, I think they are closing in. Of course, you have 2 cars, 2 different sets of 2-car drafts there, but the combination of Parsons and Allison seems to be a little bit the fastest. Let's see.
Yeah, it's 3.2 seconds, almost a second that they have picked up in the last few laps. Well, Jerry Punch is with, well, who has to be a disappointed Darrell Waltrip.
Well, he has to be disappointed, but he's also got to be pleased the car ran so well, Darrell. You had a good run going.
Well, we got the best car here again today, but, you know, to no avail. Something's wrong with it, and we broke a shock off the right front. That scared me to death. Found out what it was, came in, and said, well, that's not too bad. I think I can drive it that way. The car was doing a lot of bouncing, but something happened to the motor now, and we're out. So just praise the Lord for a safe race for us and everybody else, I hope.
Darrell, with you out of it, who out there seems to have the strong horse? Is Davey pretty strong, possibly a couple of cars, Jeff Bodine?
Look like my team's going to do good today. My teammates are going to do good today. Jeff and Kenny look awful strong, and Schrader did a whale of a job back there on the back a little while ago.
Well, indeed he did, but a tough break for Darrell Waltrip out of it here at Talladega.
Darrell made his Winston Cup debut in May of 1972 here at Talladega, with Jake Elder serving as crew chief, and that car that Darrell drove that day was the same one that Mario Andretti won the 1967 Daytona 500. And we have quite a fire going on in the infield. I don't think you could really call this too uncommon, as some rowdies have apparently set fire to a car or some tires or something down there in the infield.
Yeah, I don't think that's a barbecue fire,
no.
They're going to have some well-done chicken over there.
Yeah, scorch your hot dogs big time on that thing. I just hope it doesn't spread and get out of control and set some other campers on fire. It looks like the fire crew is indeed there trying to put out the blaze. Just another thing that you have to put up with when you come to a spectacle like the Winston 500 here at Talladega.
Well, so many people come here, especially in the infield, for the event, Bob. You know, a lot of times they don't even get to see much of the race from the middle of the infield, but they are a part of it, so important a part of it. I think it's just a big part of racing. People come for the event, people come for the competition, and we have had one heck of a race so far today with the competition level like it is.
Now, first of all, you have to mention that that's a very small percentage of the total attendance on hand here today that goes to the infield to party, and I'll tell you, they are missing some great stuff if they're not in the grandstand watching this, because just for instance here, Bill Elliott and Terry Labonte are side by side out there, and look at this tremendous pack of cars dicing for position.
They haven't been single file in that pack since that last caution flag. They're going to have to start making green flag pit stops here pretty soon, but they're all so tight and so close in there.
Michael Waltrip is also right in the thick of things here. He's right behind Rusty Wallace in the Kodiak car, and you got to compliment Michael Waltrip. He's had a good run so far.
Yes, he has. He's run very well. He stayed in some of the lead packs, in either the second or third lead pack all day long, and hung right in there. And I'll tell you, anybody that's staying in the lead lap is doing a good job out there, and certainly has a shot at winning this race. If you're still in the lead lap with 100 miles to go, you got a shot at winning.
Michael Waltrip is shown in 11th position.
Yeah, he is doing a good job because he does let up a little bit in the turns. Part of that is because of the draft, being behind another car. If you don't let up a little bit, you'll pull up to him. But even when he was running by himself, we could see he was letting up just a little bit. If he was able to hold it to the floor, he would be up there with the leaders.
And so 92 laps are completed in the Winston 500 at Talladega. The lead is held by Jeff Bodine, and we'll be right back. Continues to lead the Winston 500 at Talladega. The number 25 car, driven by Ken Schrader, is the last car, or rather the first car off the lead lap, is shown in 24th position, but a lap down. And the interval now between first and second is, I think, just about the same as it was, because right here, Phil Parsons and Davey Allison, running second and third, got caught up behind some traffic that they had to deal with. And so that interval is stabilized. However, we might watch it now because there is some clear racetrack between first and second and third, and they may be catching once again.
Well, they have actually lost just a little bit, Bob, about 2 or 3/10 of a second, but Jeff Bodine and Schrader came up on the cars of Richard Petty and Benny Parsons, picked up a little bit of draft, but now Phil Parsons and Davey Allison are coming up on Petty and Benny Parsons, so that should help them a little bit.
Well, I think part of it is Ken Schrader and Jeff Bodine are working really good together. They're running a close draft. And here you see Phil Parsons and Davey Allison. Davey is about doing all he can to hang on. He's not up on Phil Parsons' bumper as far or as close as Ken Schrader runs to Jeff Bodine. So that means Schrader and Bodine at this point are helping each other a lot more than Davey Allison. He's backed off a little bit farther, maybe a car length farther behind Phil Parsons, and that's the difference.
We anticipate pit stops and about 4 more laps between now and then. Let's take a look at our Napa mid-race recap. At the time when we reached the halfway point, Jeff Bodine, leader, and he still is. He had led 36 of the 94 laps. The average speed of the race, 164.630 miles an hour, and Bodine had pitted on laps 16 and 56. There were 2 caution periods, a total of 9 laps. We had a multi-car crash coming out of 4, but nothing serious. There have been 7 leaders and 13 lead changes. 41 cars started, 36 remained, and 21 cars are on the lead lap. Those out of the race, Eddie Bierschwell, Mickey Gibbs, Ken Reagan, and Rodney Combs, all of those involved in that incident coming out of turn number 4. Darrell Waltrip has also dropped out of competition.
It's about time for green flag pit stops. I would imagine the leaders will be coming in here quick. Yeah,
here's Bobby Allison. Bobby Allison coming in right now.
He brings the Miller High Life car in for a stop, and Jerry Punch is right there.
Well, Jimmy Finnick, Pat Broyles, and the crew going to work on the Bobby Allison car. Scott Beam has the jacket beneath the right side of the car. The first fuel can comes across. The second fuel can now going in. Allison trying to pick up his 5th win at Talladega ever and his 4th Winston 500 win. Pretty good pit stop, about 17 seconds down and away with 2 right side tires.
So 2 tires and some gasoline goes into the Miller High Life car driven by Bobby Allison, and his teammate Bobby Hillin pulls out just ahead of him.
They pitted together. They were not right together on the pit road, but they did come in at the same time, and hopefully they'll pick up each other's draft, but they have just gone a lap down. Both of those drivers have gone a lap down, and now Dale Earnhardt going into the pit. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
But one of the things we're going to watch here is whether Earnhardt is going to take tires or not. He sure is. He's going to take right side tires. A lot of the early race conversation was about, do you take tires or do you want track position instead? Earnhardt's choice, the same as Bobby Allison. He is going to take 2 on the outside. They're on. Fuel's not all in yet. There they got a full load of fuel, and Earnhardt's gone.
Well, you can see they do put on tires because they can change the tires quicker than they can put in the fuel, so they might as well go ahead and change the tires while they're waiting for that gas to go in.
However, NASCAR did make a rule change beginning for this race that increases the size of the fuel vent and allows them to put the fuel in quicker.
And Dale Earnhardt just went a lap down as the leaders went by as he was coming out. However, they have pit stops coming up here very quickly themselves.
It will be interesting to see if Jeff Bodine and Ken Schrader pit on the same lap to try and keep together, and also Davey Allison and Phil Parsons. We already know that Phil Parsons can run 125 miles because he did that once today. They know how far he can go. Davey Allison, or almost, yeah, he ran out on the backstretch. But Davey Allison probably can go farther than any of these cars out there. We've been monitoring the gas that they're putting in the cars, and Davey Allison is using less gas than Phil Parsons. So let's see what Davey's crew decides to do, whether they want to follow Phil into the pits or stay on out there.
Again, here is second and third. Phil Parsons in the Skull Crown Oldsmobile, and Davey Allison, the Haviland Ford car number 28, second and third. Lake Speed has come in for a pit stop in his Kmart Oldsmobile, car number 83. They go to work on the right side of that car with a tire change. The fuel goes in on the left side. Jackson, Mississippi driver. There's a view from our camera located in turn number 1.
Several cars on pit road at the same time. Lake Speed pulling away now, and also Brett Bodine.
Brett Bodine pulls out. Ernie Irvin also has made a pit stop and pulls back out in car number 2. And Lake Speed, with a little bit more momentum build-up, passes Ernie Irvin as the cars head back onto the racetrack.
One thing a crew chief thinks about now, this is the most likely time for a caution. During green flag pit stops, there's slow cars coming in and out of the pits. There's fast cars on the track with new tires and gas. There's chassis adjustments being made. It's the most likely time for a pit stop. Here's 9 and 27 in the pits. Bill Elliott's crew, 2 tires also.
Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Bill Elliott making his green flag stop, right side tires for Elliott's crew. Now, he pitted on lap 57 originally. We're just a little over 100, so he went about 43 to 44 laps. That is about 109 miles. Pretty good fuel mileage for the Ford, the Coors Motorcraft effort. Right side tires down the way, 17.310 seconds.
That's about as equal as you can get. They came in together, and they're going out together.
And the leader is in, Jeff Bodine. Here's Dick Bergman.
Cars.
They have definitely been ready for Jeff Bodine, and he'll do the same thing you've seen everybody else do up and down pit road. 2 right side tires. Also following him into pit road was his teammate, Kenny Schrader, who is as well taking 2 right side tires. Bodine's windshield, a couple of small cracks in it, a little slower pit stop, a bunch of guys trying to back him out, and Schrader passes him out of the pits.
So Schrader has just a little bit quicker pit stop, and he leads Jeff Bodine out of the pit. So this could help Ken.
Yes, it could help him after everybody else makes their pit stops, and if they are indeed still the leader and as good a pit stop as Jeff Bodine made, I would say that he would still be the leader.
Kyle Petty goes out. Mark Martin and the Jack Roush prepared Ford also goes out. And here now come Phil Parsons and Davey Allison at the same time for their simultaneous stops.
Yeah, interesting strategy. You know, Davey Allison could have gone a little farther, but Robert Yates, the crew chief, told him just pit when Phil Parsons pit, and we'll try and pull out with them and hopefully run down Jeff Bodine.
And you can bet that Phil Parsons isn't going to take the chance that he took earlier and run out of fuel.
Left side tires on Davey Allison's car. Plus, they're having a little problem with gas. Here goes Phil Parsons on his way out. Davey Allison's going to lose a lot of valuable time here. Now he stalls the engine. Oh. Boy, tough break.
Now he gets the car rolling again. Neil Bonnet is in for a pit stop. They're also changing the tires on the left side of that car. Now the fuel is in and the jack goes down. Bonnet rolls away.
Well, Davey Allison lost valuable time to Phil Parsons.
So he won't have the advantage of the draft of that car when he goes back out.
So pit stops have been made, and now we settle back to watch some more racing as 103 laps have been completed in the Winston 500. We're glad you could join us on this Sunday afternoon. We'll be right back. Back at Talladega, Jeff Bodine still leads the Winston 500, but Ken Schrader now is positioned ahead of Bodine, and therefore Schrader is himself on the lead lap once again. Phil Parsons is running second, and he is catching Jeff Bodine. Third place is Davey Allison. Fourth is Bobby Allison. And in fifth is Sterling Marlin. And those statistics after the most recent round of pit stops.
You know, it's a tough thing for Davey Allison. He still is holding on to third place, but he lost that draft that he had going with Phil Parsons. Phil Parsons and Davey were inching up a little bit and then holding their own, inching up a little bit on Jeff Bodine for that lead. Then during that pit stop, when they let the jack down, it looked like the engine flooded. The gas will splash in these carburetors sometimes when the jack drops. The driver has to be aware in these high gears that they run with the restrictor plates. The car just doesn't want to get going, and they lost some valuable time.
Let's go to Jerry Punch, who's in Davey Allison's pit.
And Gary Nelson, you make a very good point about Davey Allison's pit stop, but a couple of seconds here in the pits can translate to a lot of distance on the speedway at these speeds of close to 200 miles per hour. I talked to Tony Price a minute ago, and the reason they changed left side tires, and you may want to amplify on this a little bit, is they had not changed left side tires since the race began. They had run 102 laps on the same left side tires, and they said, we just can't risk it anymore. Not at these speeds. We're going to have to get left sides and hope for a yellow, maybe, and come in and get some fresh rights a little later on.
Yeah, interesting that they did change left sides. Now we do find out why. You don't want to be out there with worn tires that are getting dangerously close to the cords. You know, Davey Allison out there running at those speeds, Robert Yates and his crew have got to be saying, let's at least get left side tires on there, because we know they are going to be well worn at this point.
And on a track like Talladega with the banking as high as it is here, there's almost as much pressure on the left side tires as there is on the right side tires.
You're right. This place is just awesome. You know, it's different from any place. You know, Daytona and Talladega people talk about in the same breath, but Talladega is unique. It is different from any other racetrack we run. The loads here on the car are just unbelievable.
Well, once again, inside the Country Time car, driven by Mike Waltrip. Harry Gant is running right ahead of Michael Waltrip, and we have been observing Michael making some kind of hand gesture, and we think maybe he's trying to signal Harry Gant to, hey, let me get in a draft with you. It'll help both of us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It would help both of them. Michael is not running quite as fast as he was before he made his pit stop. He and Dale Jarrett came into the pits together. Jarrett got out a little bit behind him, but ran him down and now has run away from him. So Michael's car, who was running up in the thick of a pack there a moment ago, was running very well, but he's not running quite as well now. Here's an unscheduled pit stop for Ricky Rudd in the Quaker State Buick.
Yeah, he just did come in for right side tires and gas just a few laps ago. He's back again. He must have had a flat tire or a vibration of some kind with his tires.
It's a quick stop, though, for Ricky Rudd, and he goes back out onto the racetrack. Bodine has put Schrader down a lap once again.
Yeah.
These two cars are running by themselves. Larry Nuber is at Pit Central with a summary of the most recent round of pit stops. Larry?
Well, a big change from what we've seen through the previous pit stops in today's race. We saw how the standings were shuffled. Well, this time there is great consistency from coming in and coming out. That's because many of the teams have found out who are the quickest cars, and the ones who are the quickest ones have made most of the changes they want to make, at least up to this point. The pit stops, the pit crews, very evenly matched, and the people who went in up front came out.
Right, so the pit stop summary shows not much change.
Well, you got to think about track position really right now. The cautions have happened. Maybe we went through the point where there was most likely for a caution period without having a caution flag. Maybe there will be no more cautions to the end of the race. These crew chiefs are thinking about that. Ken Schrader's trying his best to get a lap back, but he's got to have a caution to be able to do anything with it if he does get it back.
Well, the 1-inch restrictor plate used for the second time this season. The first, of course, was at Daytona in February. We asked the guy who's leading the race, Jeff Bodine, about what they learned since Daytona.
I hope we've learned a lot. We didn't qualify as well as we'd like to here at Talladega. We missed the setup. We changed the setup, and the car immediately went faster. Really surprised us, but it was a pleasant surprise. We missed the setup at Daytona just a little bit. The car was fast, but it didn't handle good enough. We're hoping we find that setup here at Talladega to make the car fast and to handle good in the race. Even at the slower speeds, you need a good handling car.
And the car is handling well for Jeff Bodine this afternoon. He is in front of the Winston 500. 112 laps have been completed now. And Only 2 caution periods so far in today's race, and the record for the fewest cautions in a Winston 500 was 2, set back in 1985. We'll be back in just a moment. We are live at Talladega, Alabama for the Winston 500, and it's all being brought to you by the Kodak Color Watch system for great film developing. By Goodyear Eagle Tires, Goodyear, because there really is a difference. By AC Delco, automotive parts that don't just fit, they match. And by Gates, a trusted name in automotive products for over 75 years. The lead held by Jeff Bodine with 114 laps completed. Ken Schrader has been running with him for a long time, but he is a lap down. We go back and pick up on some of the other action that's going on, and we see that Bobby Allison, Sterling Marlin, and Davey Allison are running in 3rd, 4th, and 5th position. Then behind them is Lake Speed, Bill Elliott, and Ricky Rudd.
So there is a good battle going on back there for those positions. They came out of the pits pretty close together. Davey Allison was a little bit in front of his dad when they came out of the pits, but now they've caught up to him as he and Sterling Marlin were drafting together and picked up, and now you got 6 cars in that bunch.
But you know, Davey Allison's got to be, there's going to be some nail biting going on in Davey's pits, because he's going to have to stretch his right side tires for 2 pit stops. Everybody else, the normal rule is you change right side tires, and if there's a long green run, then you change 4 tires, then the next time you change 2 tires on the left side. So you don't really want to go 2 stops on your right side tires. This being a new tire here at Talladega, it's an unknown. It's something you're not sure how fast it's going to wear. You have to almost hope for a caution or hope for the tires not to wear out before the next chance to change them.
Davey Allison right now in 5th spot. We might mention that Phil Parsons is running in 2nd. Behind Jeff Bodine, and then this group of cars. Bodine and Schrader, there they are. In the north banking here at Talladega.
Boy, you know that is something. Ken Schrader and Jeff Bodine have run front and back of each other, and they've both decided that they're faster with Jeff in front. I'm sure they've decided that from the crew chiefs on the radios. Now, here is only 1.2 seconds. Boy, Phil Parsons has really gained a lot of ground recently.
He really has. There's little question in my mind that Phil Parsons is the fastest car on the racetrack right now.
No doubt about it. He's running all by himself. Look at these 2 cars are working together, and Phil Parsons is inching up on him. He looks faster now than he was when Davey Allison was behind him, helping him. Or we thought Davey was helping him.
Just a great race for Phil Parsons.
Unbelievable.
Now we're in Cale Yarborough's Hardee's Oldsmobile as he is involved in some traffic out there. He's right behind Mark Martin in the Stroh Light machine.
And right behind Cale is his student driver, Dale Jarrett, who's driving Hoss Ellington's car in this race. They have teamed up together since they came out of the pits, and they really have been making up some good ground. In fact, they have been running lap speeds at about the same as Jeff Bodine is running up front, but they're about 2/3 of a lap behind. And it was announced here on Friday that Dale Jarrett, this might be the last race that he would drive for Hoss Ellington unless they can find additional sponsorship. Dale does have an offer to drive a car at Charlotte from Glenn Doyle, who has Raven Boats. He's going to buy a Hoss Ellington car and has asked Dale to drive it. So we'll see what shakes out of that situation.
You know, that was interesting, that camera shot from the inside of Cale Yarborough's car. He had a piece of chewing gum taped to his dashboard. I guess during a yellow flag, he could take that chewing gum. There it is, right in the center of his dashboard. He could take that chewing gum and chew on it a little bit. You know, the drivers do have a water bottle that they fill with ice before the race, and they have a tube, almost like a straw, that they can drink water during the race. But I think Cale's one of the few that chews gum during the race also.
Give him a little moisture, and every little bit helps because your mouth can get awfully dry.
There you can see the lead car of Jeff Bodine now moving through some slower traffic, and look how close Phil Parsons is.
They must have let up just a little bit in that traffic, because Phil just all of a sudden caught right up. So Jeff was taking it easy on to get through the traffic, and Phil Parsons took that advantage.
Parsons now has essentially caught the leader, Jeff Bodine. Parsons is in the black and white car, number 55. He's right behind Ken Schrader in the red car. But boy, Phil Parsons has really looked strong here in the first first 129 laps of this race.
Well, with Phil Parsons behind Ken Schrader, Ken's car looked like it was getting loose when Jeff Bodine was behind Ken, so Ken decided to run behind Jeff and run faster. Now with Phil back there, Ken may have his hands full. We've already seen what happens when he gets in traffic. I hope they got his car a little better.
Well, they have just put a lap on A.J. Foyt in car number 14, so that means now there are 15 cars that are in the lead lap. Again, Bodine the leader. The red car between Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons is Ken Schrader a lap down. We're glad you could be here on this Sunday afternoon, and we'll be back with more from Talladega. Back at Talladega, where Jeff Bodine leads Phil Parsons in the Winston 500. They've still got Ken Schrader between them, but Phil Parsons may be making a move here at any moment to pass Ken Schrader and then set his sights on Jeff Bodine. Cannot make the pass right now. And earlier in the weekend, we had a chance to talk to Phil Parsons, who again qualified so well for this race. And we asked him how he does pass a car that appears to be equally prepared out there on the racetrack.
It's virtually impossible. You know, if as we saw at Daytona, there was only 2 or 3 cars capable of passing it. It seemed at will. So if you have equal cars today, unless they make a mistake, which at the speeds we're going to be running is a little bit harder to do than doing it at 210 miles an hour. A little bit harder to make a mistake. And you know, if you have an equal car to somebody, you're not going to pass it.
Okay, now those comments were probably made on Friday here, naturally before the race. Do you think maybe his thoughts about that have changed?
I would say that his confidence has been built as a result of him coming up through the field earlier when he was almost a lap down as a result of a green flag pit stop, and then after pitting during the caution, he was still way back in the pack, and we got a crash up in turn 4.
Rick Wilson has spun and come in contact with the wall, spinning toward the infield now, just out of corner number 4.
Schrader got the jump, racing to the line. Schrader's going to beat Jeff Bodine to the line.
Okay, that puts Schrader right back in, and that's the break that he was looking for.
Yep, and there's some fire coming from the Rick Wilson car. In fact, there is quite a bit of flame coming from the...
Boy, he needs to be getting out. Get out of there.
He does. Get out of there, Rick, in a hurry.
An explosion.
I think he turned his fire extinguisher on, didn't, because it looked like the flames went out there all of a sudden. And he decided it was time to get out of there, and he is being helped out of the car.
Looks like some photographers or other spectators have just gone to the rescue of Rick Wilson and pulled him out of that blazing race car, and it was going pretty good there.
Yeah, the car was obviously still running, and Rick Wilson thought he could make it to his pits, but something caught on fire. He had to get out quick.
All right, let's take another look at it again. This incident happened coming off of corner number 4.
And the leaders are not too far behind him. He was running in a pack with Cale Yarborough and Dale Jarrett and Mark Martin, but he got down out of harm's way as he came off of the turn, slid down into the grass, almost went back up on the track.
There's Schrader in front of Jeff.
And Wilson's car burst into flames. He got it stopped at the entrance to pit road, and then some of the photographers, we believe, that were shooting down in that area came to his rescue and pulled him out of the car, and now the medical personnel are arriving on the scene. Meanwhile, it is pit stop time once again, as just about everybody who was running up front comes in, including Phil Parsons. They've changed rubber on the right side of that car and now go to the driver's side and change rubber on the left. Davey Allison is also in for the stop, and here's Jerry Punch.
Well, a good time for Davey Allison to come in and get those right side tires. Remember, he took left side tires on his last pit stop, and Bodine now changing left side tires. He is out. Phil Parsons is out, and they are still working on the Davey Allison car. A lot of cars here on pit road now racing down pit road. It's Bodine and Phil Parsons, and now Davey Allison will pull out as Ellie is out, and of course Terry Labonte still getting his left side tires put on. Now Labonte's Budweiser Chevrolet pulls down pit road.
Well, the race out of the pit area was won by Jeff Bodine. Phil Parsons was just behind him. Meanwhile, here is the burned car of Rick Wilson as it sits to the entrance of the pit area. And we will now show you the replay of what happened when the car got turned in the right direction, but then the fire occurred.
Boy, it's hard to speculate what that fire could be.
Sometimes, Gary, some teams will mount the the oil reserve tank under the cowl there. Did maybe he break an oil line or something?
That's what it is, Ned. The left front tire is flat. There goes the inner liner, blew out. The left front tire was flat, and it swinging around under the fender, obviously broke an oil line, causing the fire.
So the car is pretty much a mess. Rick Wilson is out, and we believe to be okay. More on that after this message. We're under our third caution period of the afternoon at Alabama International Motor Speedway in Talladega. This caused by a spin and a resultant fire in the Rick Wilson car. And we believe that Rick is going to be okay. We'll check further on that in just a moment. Meanwhile, let's do a little explaining of exactly what drafting is. We've been talking about it almost all afternoon and how important it is, especially in a super speedway like this here at Talladega.
Well, here's a graph of a car on the racetrack. High pressure air in front of it, low pressure behind it. That's a car running by itself. You can see the wake. You know, you can't see wind. It's there, but you can't see it. This graphic shows what the wind is doing. It's going around the sides of the car, over the top of the car, creating a low pressure vacuum almost, or a void behind the car as it moves through the air. Very important here at Talladega. Now, when a car pulls up behind another car and fills that low pressure area up, that means that the two cars are taking advantage of only the one car breaking the air, and they can run a little bit faster. The critical thing at this point is when he gets up real close, the front car may lose that downforce on his back spoiler, causing the back wheels to slide, like we saw Ken Schrader. Although he was alongside of a car, that dirty air from the side can do the same thing. So that wind is so important. You can't see it happening, but it's there.
Well, Buddy Baker may be jumping out of that car. Let's go to the pit area for a report on that.
Well, indeed, Buddy Baker has a problem. When he had a flat tire earlier in the day, it tore a panel out of the inside of the car and has been letting exhaust fumes up inside the cockpit of the car. Baker's been getting sicker and sicker. They finally had to pull the gentle giant out of the car, and they'll have a problem now because they're going to put Rodney Combs, who's about 5 feet 10 in the car, and Buddy Baker is 6 feet 4.5, about 240 pounds, and he is now out trying to get unhooked and get his breath and trying to get a cool. Buddy, are you all right? You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. What happened? The inner panel blowed out of it.
Well, we're trying to get him back over the wall and get him some oxygen and get a cold cloth and get some air in him there. He's going to walk away and he'll get a fresh driver in the car. Maybe he'll get back in about 20 or 30 more laps next pit stop.
Rodney Combs dropped out of the event early. As a matter of fact, he was involved in that very early crash that we had coming out of turn number 4, but he gets a second chance now here in the Winston 500, substituting for Buddy Baker. Pit Central, Larry Newber.
Bob, it's really intriguing how the dominance on the racetrack of Jeff Bodine, Phil Parsons, and Kenny Schrader, who will not appear on this summary, continues even in the pit area. You can see Jeff Bodine going in at first position, coming out the same, and Phil Parsons' crew doing the same thing. The other teams that exited from the pits in good position after this pit stop, once again, that factor of experience. The teams that have been together the longest, the teams and the drivers who have raced Winston stock car racing for the longest period of time, really have the advantage in this type of situation.
Okay, so the caution remains out as the cleanup continues out of turn number 4, where Rick Wilson spun and the car caught fire. Back with more of the Winston 500 right after this. Winston Cup replays are brought to you by Purolator, the first name in filters. For Pure Oil now and Pure Oil later, it's Purolator. Talladega 1987, the Allisons make history, but for different reasons. Bobby cut a tire on the 21st lap, sending the car into the debris fence, separating the track from the grandstand. A huge section of fence was torn out, but there were no serious spectator injuries, and Allison climbed from his car also uninjured. Davey Allison's crew chief Joey Knuckles watched as Davey put the thoughts of his dad's accident behind him. He raced to the front to win his first Winston Cup race, and it came in his rookie season. Now the field is just about set to go back to green as Jeff Bodine will lead them down. Now Phil Parsons is in second. Rusty Wallace is in third position. Fourth is Bobby Allison, and fifth is Neil Bonnet. And the word we get from the infield hospital is that Rick Wilson has been checked over and he is okay. The green flag drops on the Winston 500 once again, 129 laps, and here we go back to racing.
Ricky Rudd down on the inside is a lap down as a result of an extra green flag pit stop. He's trying to get that back, but somebody high into the wall back behind the leaders, but he keeps it.
Schrader.
Yeah, it was Schrader. He just simply got up on the barbels and scraped against the wall. He really didn't slow him down very much. Just a lot of dust kicked up with all of that, and he survived another incident out there.
He was up in the gray area, that's for sure.
That's the one you said a moment ago you don't want to get in.
Here's a replay of what happened. Look at this pack of cars heading for turn number 1. There's just no room.
You see he's way on the high side, and where there's a little oil dry, it looks like up there, right behind Dale Jarrett and Bobby Hilton on the inside. There's Kyle Petty going by, and he might have just scraped the wall. It might not have hurt anything.
You know, he did get his lap back, but that doesn't automatically mean you're a contender. He still has to pass all of these cars to get back up to race with Jeff Bodine. Phil Parsons took maybe, 40, 50 laps to do that.
So it's Bodine and Phil Parsons. And now I believe Bobby Allison has passed Rusty Wallace and is in third position just behind this duo.
Bobby Allison might be a sleeper in this race. We haven't heard a great deal from him. He's been up there, though, in the top 10 and in the top 5 quite a bit today. But he might have something left there that they don't know about. We'll see.
Yeah, Bobby Allison, he is a very smart driver here at Talladega. I'd like to have him in my corner any day here. Interesting to watch Phil Parsons and Jeff Bodine there. Phil did catch Jeff just before the caution, but then the caution came out. Now we'll see if Phil wants to ride behind Jeff and see if they can pull away, or he'll go on around Jeff and see if he can get away.
And here's the battle for position. It is Rusty Wallace, Bill Elliott, number 3, Dale Earnhardt, 83 is Lake Speed, and 29 is Ricky Rudd. But again, he is a lap down, and Davey Allison leads this group in the 28 car. Dale Jarrett is also in this bunch, as is Terry Labonte and Neil Bonnet. Look at Schrader, rather Rudd, going way high on the racetrack.
Rudd let off the gas. I'm sure he signaled to everybody to go around him. He's got problems. Either the car just got loose from the traffic, the dirty air that we talked about earlier, or something, he may have a tire problem again.
Sterling Marlin also is in this fight for position. He's right behind Bobby Allison. Dale Earnhardt could also be a sleeper, although he really hasn't shown that much muscle in the race so far.
No, he hasn't. He was up there as a result of a quick pit stop after the first caution and ran up in the top 5 for a while, but then he's just been one of the other guys back in the pack, which is not that normal for him, but he's moving right now.
Yeah, Davey is down on the bottom, and a problem for Davey Allison.
It looks like the engine has let go. That looks like exhaust.
Right out the exhaust, blown piston, something like that.
Well, it was pretty obvious that Davey knew something was wrong because he had dropped to the inside like, oh, there's just a matter of moments before this thing goes, and indeed it did. So Davey Allison, the defending champion of the Winston 500, pulls toward pit road and is out of the race.
And the yellow flag is out. I'm sure that it's a result of the oil, perhaps, that he put down some debris on the track.
Had the leaders picked up the yellow?
They're not acting like they got the yellow flag. Let's watch them. They are not slowing down. Jeff Bodine running awful fast. If he should pit this lap, though, even if he did not get the flag, the smart thing for him to do would be to come in the pits right now.
He knows the caution is out. If he didn't see the caution flag, if he didn't get it, he knows it's out because there are caution lights all around the racetrack that come on simultaneously when the caution flag comes out.
Come on into pits, Jeff. That would be the smart thing to do. Even though he did not get the flag, to pit this lap would be the smart thing to do.
He is.
Good work, Jeff.
He and Phil are both coming in for a stop.
You can see cars going by on the racetrack. They're going to get caught behind a pace car.
Bill Elliott comes in also. Neil Bonnet.
Well, Bobby Allison elected not to come into the pits, nor Dale Earnhardt.
Gee, look at the stop by Jeff Bodine. That was a quick one. He's already out.
Yeah, just gas. That's all he needs to get to the finish.
And here comes Phil, pulling out. Bill Elliott. Just a fuel stop for these drivers.
But Gary, can they make it from here? There's about 54 laps. I don't think they can make it all the way.
You're right. I was 10 laps off on that. I was a little premature on that one.
So the field slowed once again. This to check the track for oil or other substances put down by Davey Allison when his engine apparently let go. fourth caution period of the race is underway at the moment as Davey Allison blew an engine down the backstretch, and now Bobby Allison has picked up the lead, and Sterling Marlin is second. Dale Earnhardt is third. We'll try to make contact with Bobby Allison during this caution.
Bobby, this is Ned Jarrett with ESPN. Do you read me? Bobby Allison, do you read us? Apparently Bobby Allison not being able to pick up our signal.
Well, we'll try it again later. Sterling Marlin is running in second position right behind Bobby Allison, and we also have hopefully a hookup with Sterling on the radio here. This is Bob Jenkins. Sterling, you got a copy on this?
Danny, can you hear me? Hard. But let me know something before we get past pit road.
Well, we're listening to some conversation between Sterling and pit crew members, and apparently they are discussing whether or not Sterling should come in for a pit stop this time.
It is decision time for the crews. You know, Jeff, I called the fact that he should come in when that yellow came out before he got to the flag stand, but it's questionable to make it to the end. They're missing maybe 5, 6, maybe even 8 laps of making it to the end. So maybe it wasn't that smart of a move for Jeff and Phil Parsons to pit. We'll have to see how it comes out. It's one of those coin toss deals, I think.
All that drama is about to be played out in the final laps of this race. 135 complete, 188 make up this race. So there are pit stops being made right now, but we'll take another break and be right back for more of the Winston 500. ESPN Speed World today at Alabama International Motor Speedway in Talladega for the Winston 500. We're under our fourth caution period of the afternoon. And at the moment, it is Bobby Allison that leads this race with Ken Schrader second, followed by Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, and Lake Speed. There have been some pit stops made, though, under this caution period.
Yes, running in 6th place is Dale Jarrett. 7th is Kenny Schrader. Bobby Hillen is 8th. 9th is Jeff Bodine, and he did make a pit stop. So did Bill Elliott, who is now 10th. Phil Parsons is 11th. 12th is Neil Bonnet. 13th is Mark Martin, and Terry Labonte, the last driver to make a pit stop, is the last driver in the lead lap in 14th position.
So Ken Schrader runs in 7th position. He needed, by the way, only $4,300 from NASCAR to become the 30th $1 million winner.
You know, it's interesting that he didn't come into the pits. Apparently, he didn't hit the wall up there. He came so close to it, but that would have been a good time for him to come in and check it out, but everything must have been okay.
All right. The field comes down now, about to go back to a green flag condition.
It's do or die here. You got to go. When they throw that green flag, they got to be at that position. Got to get up to the front of the pack. Every driver wants to move up right now.
The grandstand here in front of us, everybody on his feet watching for the green flag to come back out. It does, and the pace picks up once again with Bobby Allison showing the way. If Bobby Allison should win today's race here at Talladega, he will pick up a $100,000 bonus. He will be 2/3 of the way toward the $1 million available to the driver who can win 3 of the 4 crown jewels in NASCAR. And look at Dale Earnhardt try to make a move on Sterling Marlin, as Earnhardt now may be willing to show his ability to take the lead in this race.
And Bob, he has led at least 1 lap in the last 8 consecutive Winston 500, but he has not led a lap today. That's something certainly he'd like to do.
Boy, he's close. He's been close several times, but he just doesn't seem to have the power today.
The car behind Bobby Allison is Kyle Petty, and he is not on the lead lap. He's a lap down.
Look at that traffic.
Allison, Kyle Petty a lap down, and then Sterling Marlin. Ken Schrader in car number 25 is moving up through the field once again. He is on the lead lap and was running in 7th position. And there's the interval between where he is and the leader. So he is certainly not out of the contest by any means. And of course, he is one of the members of the Rick Hendrick stable, and a team that certainly has a lot of money at his disposal. We asked him to compare last year's kind of under-financed team.
Well, I've just been going through a change where, our financial backing of the Folgers team compared to the Dynamo team that we drove for 3 years. We've got a real good budget, and they've finally convinced me just to run them things hard as I can and don't worry about ripping sides off them. So after a couple races and they kept harping on me, I started ripping sides off and they all seem happier now, so I'm not going to stop now.
Well, he almost ripped the sides off of it up there in the first turn a few laps ago, but it has been a great afternoon for Ken Schrader.
Well, you know, Ken Schrader is an aggressive driver. And he's fairly young in his career in Winston Cup racing. You don't want to discourage that aggressiveness. Rick Hendrick tells Ken Schrader to, as long as you've got your foot in it, we're proud of you. And that's the kind of driver that Rick wants out of all of his teams. So Ken Schrader's he's following the boss's orders. He holds it to the floor.
Well, we're happy to report that down near Pit Central with Larry Newber is Rick Wilson, who was involved in that crash and fire out of turn 4. Larry?
Not only near, but right here is Rick Wilson. Rick, we were speculating. First of all, you're okay. That's the initial report we got right. Okay. There was an oil line fire. Was that accurate?
Yeah. What had happened, left front tire blowed, and I waved Cale and them guys off, and about that time the whole cockpit filled up with fire. I couldn't see where I was going, so undoubtedly I run off the flat spot and the car spun and the fire went out. So I said, well, everything's okay. Put it in gear after I'd spun around and headed back toward the pits. As soon as I put it in gear and the car cranked, a big fire started again. I hit the fire extinguisher and got out. Everything was okay, but the Kodak Oldsmobile was right.
That explosion that we saw on TV was basically the igniting of the extinguisher, wasn't it?
Well, the left front tire blowed in the corner. That was a big explosion. But that fire extinguisher, that's probably what didn't go off.
Well, we're watching the action live right now as it's unfolding. Bobby Allison up front there, and Kyle Petty, who is now a lap down, by the way. Bodine continues to be very strong in this race, as does Phil Parsons, and Kenny Schrader has gotten his lap back. And we're going to tune in Gary Nelson and Ned Jarrett also up top and let the three of you kind of talk about what's going on out there. Let's start it by saying, whom do you think looks strong from the time that you were out there?
I'll tell you, Phil looks awful strong. He's been strong. And I believe he made a lap up, didn't he? And if he did, he is awful strong. There's a bunch of good, strong cars out there. You know, everybody's in a long line of draft there, but you know they're just hanging on right now. So you know, Earnhardt's come a long way, but I don't know how good he's been running since I got away from him. But you know, I got to say, Phil, and of course Bobby Allison. Bobby Allison's there. He's gonna be strong.
Rick, this is Bob Jenkins up in the booth. Everybody was talking before the race about how you had to stay in line, and if you got out of line, you're going to go to the back. But we didn't necessarily see that as much today as everybody anticipated. Did you find that's the way it was out there, or could you get out of line and still stay with everybody?
Well, where I found the only place I could really pass on the racetrack was on the high side. When the cars that were going in the middle of the racetrack, I could go the outside and pass them. I did make a mistake at one time and go the inside. I lost about 10 spots, and it took me a long time to make it back up. But some cars can. If you get one person to go with you, if it's a good car, you can go. But if you don't, you can't go. The only place that I could see anybody who could pass real good by themselves was on the outside.
Well, we're now watching the 5 and 55 cars once again, and they've been hooked up together just about all race long. And Rick, you indicated you did think Phil was very strong. What about Jeff? Is he also a possible candidate to win this thing?
Well, I believe he is. His car is working real good. It's you know, you can see him right there going up under a 25 car, and he's got a lot of horsepower on that hood. And the thing about it is, when the cars get broke up like that, he can get back in line and wait till the opportunity goes again, or if he gets help like he does now from Phil in the 25 car, he will go.
Rick, were you in a position to see Ken spin there on the back stretch as he tried to pass Phil early in the race and got out of shape?
I didn't see that. We come around, I seen the black marks in the rubber, and really didn't know what had happened. But I'll tell you what, Jeff does look strong, and the 55 car does too.
Well, especially with them coming up on the inside the way that they are, as you indicated, Rick, it's awfully tough to do is to pass on the inside.
We have a crash in turn 4. Car sliding down the banking in turn number 4.
NASCAR hasn't put out the yellow yet.
There is no yellow. A car definitely did spin down the banking. However, he may have kept going. He was running toward the back of this pack, and there wasn't any problem out there.
Yeah, apparently somebody spun and kept going. I don't see a thing on the racetrack.
And now the yellow is coming out.
There once again is Michael Waltrip signaling to the drivers behind him that the yellow is on the race course. Now we have a race to the line, and look at Kyle Petty. He's trying to get the lap back. He has passed Bobby Allison. If he can hold that lead as they cross the line, Kyle Petty will go back on the lead lap. Here they come through the tri-oval, and Kyle Petty still staying in front of Bobby Allison, and yes, he gets the lap back.
Bobby had to race Kyle.
And there's is the reason for the caution flag. That is Ernie Irvan. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
Boy, this is going to be one quick pit stop for Jeff Bodine, less than one full can, and he is out up pit road a little ways. Bill Parsons did the same thing, and he is out. And here goes Neil Bonnet. He is out already. Pit road is almost empty. It just started, and it's over already.
Just a little bit of gas is what they wanted.
Now they can go the rest of the way from here, Gary, I believe.
Yeah, it should be that way. It's hard to monitor the gas mileage these guys have been getting because of the drafting.
And there you can see Cecil Gordon holding the sign that will put Dale Earnhardt into his assigned pit position for a quick pit stop. Meanwhile, the leaders stay out there. Now that's Earnhardt on the very inside of the racetrack. Watch him dive into pit road to make a quick fuel stop. And we believe also that Sterling Marlin is going to do so. Bobby Allison?
He should.
Yes, he does.
In fact, most of them should come in because they are all going to need fuel before this race is over, and they do have a good chance of going the rest of the way. Let's go to Dick Berggren in the pits.
Well, we've got Sterling Marlin, who had been running in second position. He is going to take fuel only 2 pits away from him. We've got the 3. Bobby Allison is in the pits. Earnhardt in and out. Marlin beats him out of the pits. And here goes Schrader. He is out as well.
Bobby Allison getting right side tires, and now Scott Beam will come around to the left side, so a little bit different strategy here. Allison will take fresh rubber all the way around. 42 laps to the completion of the Winston 500. A little over 110 miles with no problem with fuel, and Allison's going to have the freshest rubber of anybody when they go back to green.
Well, that was a smart thing for Bobby's crew to do. He was the leader. He had to try and race Kyle Petty to the line to try and get Kyle, to keep Kyle a lap down. What that meant was, while Bobby's racing Kyle to the finish line, to the yellow flag, all the other cars are coming into the pits. Bobby had to come in a lap after everybody else pitted. That meant he's going to be the last car on the restart. Why race him out of, he's not going to beat him out of the pits. Why not, since he has to start in the back, get 4 new tires and have that little bit of an edge at least. So Bobby really lost out on the yellow flag having to race Kyle, but he may gain back by having new tires.
So our 5th caution period of the day is on here at Talladega. This because of a spin in turn number 4 involving Ernie Irvan. He's okay, though. We'll be right back. The field is still under yellow in the Winston 500 here at Talladega. We've been talking all afternoon about the changes from a year ago when Bobby Allison had his crash. One of the things they did was seal in the right side of the car with glass and with skirts. But that glass created some problems for the crews. With that story, here is an ESPN Quick Fact. Quick Facts are brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will.
In years past, to make a weight distribution change on a race car, the mechanic could reach through the side window. Sometimes he had to get in a precarious position to do that, but nevertheless, he could get the job done. With new rules now, there are side glasses in the cars on the super speedways. If he tries to go inside, he gets a face full of plexiglass. So how did they remedy that? By simply drilling a hole in the rear window so he could put the ratchet through and make the adjustment.
Well, that does make it easier as we watch the pace car coming in the pits to make those chassis adjustments, but it's still which way to turn that bolt is the tough part.
You can get to it, but the question is, how much do you change it? Huh?
Yes, sir.
All right, the green flag comes out once again, and the race resume, and Rusty Wallace is the leader. Jeff Bodine is in 2nd place. 3rd, I believe, is going to be Bill Elliott, then Phil Parsons and Terry Labonte, although the scramble for position back there is underway, and it's difficult to tell who's running where at the moment until they get sorted out. But clearly the leader is going to be Rusty Wallace.
Boy, track position, that's the key right now. Everybody's trying to get it, and nobody wants to give it up.
Look at Jeff Bodine pull to the inside of the racetrack down the backstretch. He's passing Alan Kulwicki in car number 7. The next car there right ahead of him is Cale Yarborough as Cale tries to get a lap back. And look at Bill Elliott. Elliott's going to go into the lead here, or break that 2nd place. Bodine has the lead. Bill Elliott comes along in 2nd, Parsons 3rd, and Rusty Wallace suddenly finds himself 4th.
Oh, you wonder if something happened to Rusty's car because they just blew by him like he was sitting still almost.
Boy, there's a lot of horsepower that front group of cars there. You can feel the ground shake. You can almost see the adrenaline in all these drivers trying to get up front.
Well, again, a guy that we haven't talked about much today because he hasn't been leading very much is Bill Elliott, but there he is right in the thick of things, running second between Bodine. Oh, we have a crash up in turn number 2. That's Michael Waltrip.
Oh, no. Scraping along the wall. He's trying to get it off of the wall. You can see that. He's trying to get it off, but he's just got to pin it right up against the wall.
He hit awful hard. Stay in the car, Mike. The yellow, the leaders have got the yellow down.
Mike Waltrip.
He's coming right on out of there.
He's climbing out. He looks a little groggy after taking a shot there. The race to the line is won by Jeff Bodine, and Parsons is second. But now we're going to have to get the Michael Waltrip car off the racetrack. There you can see Michael has climbed out, and he is walking rather gingerly across the racetrack, obviously shaken just a little bit from that shot he took in turn number 2.
Well, his steering wheel was broken. The hub was broken on his steering wheel. Either, most likely it broke in the accident.
Michael walking in the grass. There is the shot from inside the car.
Yeah, you can tell the steering wheel's not in the proper position. The windshield slid over to the right. You can see there's about 8-inch gap there. Yeah, there's the hub broken on the steering wheel.
Well, he had his hands full, didn't he?
Yeah, he took a pretty good lick. There were a lot of cars that were running awfully close together back there as they were jockeying for positions. They were running 3 and 4 abreast.
Yeah, there was a 3-wide group coming off of that second turn, trying for positions, and Michael ended up on the outside of it, it looked like.
You can see that Michael has walked to the grassy area, and the ambulance and safety personnel have arrived on the scene. Michael appeared to be shaken, but perhaps not seriously injured.
Nobody came into the pits. Obviously, they all think they can make it to the finish.
Probably can now with these caution laps. That'll conserve some fuel for them.
Yeah.
Only 38 more laps to go. We're at lap number 150. So 38 more to go in the Winston 500 at Talladega. Back with more right after these messages. Michael Waltrip's Pontiac, Country Time Pontiac, is being dragged from the racetrack after it came in contact with the outside wall in turn number 2 just after the green flag had dropped. Now Bobby Allison has come in for a pit stop, changing left side tires. Well, he's just about the only one that came in. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
A little bit unexpected for someone to come in. They could make it all the way on fuel, but the reason they came in, well, that's because they wanted to get a better set of tires on the car. They wanted to adjust the stagger, and the best way to do that here at Talladega is to put 4 different tires on the car. Bobby had nothing to lose. He was at the tail end of that pack on the lead lap, so why not come on back in, get the 4 tires you want to the run of the checkered flag, and see what you can do with those.
All right, thank you, Jerry. The Goblins have reached out and grabbed Michael Waltrip from a very fine race that he was having. You know, here's a replay of it. Scraping along the wall outside of turn number 2 down the backstretch. You know, there's a lot of rumors about this place, of it being an old Indian burial ground and it being haunted and that kind of thing. I'm sure you've heard that theory, Ned. What do you think?
Yes, I have. I've heard a lot of things about this place, the spooky things that have gone on here, but I don't know. I'm not too superstitious, but you remember many years ago when the late Bobby Isaac was running here, he was driving for Bud Moore, and said a voice told him to stop the car and get out. He did. He pulled it into the garage area and parked it and left. The crew was up on pit road and wondering what happened, and he said that a voice told him to get out of the car.
No kidding.
Yeah, he did. And you know, that kind of thing has happened.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Gary?
You can imagine when I first came to this racetrack, you feel like you know, you feel so small when you get into the size of this place. Most of the short tracks and even the bigger tracks that I had been to before I had come here, they just seem dwarfed by this place. It's just so overpowering to you that I think that's more of what the drivers feel. They feel almost intimidated by the mystique around this track. The strange things that seem to happen here just add to that mystique.
Well, that was one of the subjects that we talked to several drivers about here in our preparation for this race. Dick Bergman just walked through the pit area and got some ideas of the drivers about this place being haunted.
You live around here, and there's a lot of stories of this place being haunted. Is it true? Is Talladega haunted?
Well, it's haunted right now. We're going too slow. You can't outrun anything. I guess we're in trouble, but I don't know if it's haunted or not. It's haunted me several times. I've won 1 race here all the years I've run here, and it's about time I got even with it.
When I was a little kid, I was afraid of the dark, and we had to stay out here one time real late, and I think I saw a ghost running around in the infield.
You know, I think my blood pressure goes up a little bit every time I come down here just because I don't like the place that much. You know, the speeds don't bother me. The race doesn't bother me. What goes on doesn't bother me. It's just being down here. It's just it's just a weird feeling about this place, and I just don't like it that much.
No, I've never seen a ghost anywhere that I know of, and especially not at Talladega.
Well, I don't think it's haunted. I'm not really superstitious, but, you know, there's a lot of funny things happen here. Some of them, you know, there's really no explanation for it.
I don't know if I believe it or not. You know, they ask drivers, are they superstitious, and do they believe in things like gods at a racetrack? I believe in a short track god. I know he'll reach out and get you every now and then.
Is this place haunted?
Nah. It'd make a good fish pond, though.
Well, from the way Bill Elliott is running today, he's third currently. I don't think he wants this place to be turned into a fish pond at all. We're still under caution at Talladega with 153 laps complete. We'll be back with more right after this. We should be going back to green next time around, as the debris has been cleaned up from the crash involving Michael Waltrip on the backstretch. Jeff Bodine leads, Phil Parsons second, Bill Elliott running third, Rusty Wallace is fourth, and Lake Speed is in fifth position.
And there are 33 laps remaining in this race.
I don't think anybody in the place is going to be sitting down for that last 33 laps. You know, Bill Elliott being winning as many races as he has won here, being in third position at this point, you've got to consider him as a big contender. Ken Schrader, we don't know what it is. He was running real strong with Jeff and with Phil Parsons. Now he's fallen back a little bit. Maybe when he got up in that gray area, that danger zone we were talking about, maybe he did some damage to his car, but we'll have to see if Schrader can come up.
Let's go to Dick Bergeron.
I'm with Harry Hyde. Harry, what's the problem? Is the car off at this point?
Well, a little bit. We got a little damage to the front end when we spun over there, but we're still running good, and we've got a good chance of winning this race, and we're going to give it the old college try here in a few minutes.
These guys do try for sure. That's Kenny Schrader's crew chief, Harry Hyde.
You can bet they will be going for it, as will several other drivers here in the final 30 laps of this race. Let's run down the 12 cars that are on the lead lap. Jeff Bodine, Phil Parsons, Bill Elliott, Rusty Wallace, Lake Speed, Neil Bonnet, Terry Labonte, Dale Earnhardt, Ken Schrader, Sterling Marlin, Dale Jarrett, the number 21 car of Kyle Petty, Bobby Hillen Jr., the number 6 car of Mark Martin, and finally Bobby Allison, who made a pit stop, the final car on the lead lap. Here comes the field through the tri-oval, and the green flag waves. We're back to racing, and look at the 5 abreast racing as drivers try to gain position.
You can expect Dale Earnhardt to be among that group that's trying to gain positions. He went very high on the restart trying to pick up some positions, but now he's run out of room up there on the outside, but there's still a lot of close racing there.
That is just an unbelievable sight as the cars move through the first and second turns down the backstretch. Look at this racing.
Boy, you talk about 5 o'clock on the freeway in Los Angeles.
Can you believe that? They have to trust each other. Even if they don't trust each other, they've got to hold it to the floor, because that position may mean a difference between winning or losing later on.
Just one of those guys was to lift off the accelerator for a split second. It could pile up the whole bunch of them.
It certainly could. But that's not likely to happen. They've all got the pedal to the metal, as they say, and they're going to run them as hard as they possibly can.
Greg Saxon, car number 50, is running well. He's to the inside there in that red car. He's not on the lead lap, and his car is working well. Meanwhile, Bodine, as you can see, Bodine and Parsons have drawn away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, Bill Elliott was trying to tag along there, but he didn't make it.
There they are, Bodine and Phil Parsons, and then here comes the rest of the pack.
Well, those are the 2 cars that have shown strength all afternoon in this race, and they've just consistently been able to pull away from the pack every time they get together.
Now here comes Bill Elliott and Rusty Wallace as we're watching from Cale Yarborough's car, the Hardee's Oldsmobile. There you can see Rusty Wallace passing on the left. Here comes Lake Speed doing likewise as they come out of the 4th turn in the tri-oval.
Yeah, Cale lost 3 positions in that 3rd and 4th turn.
Of course, Cale is 1 lap down, but since he went that lap down, he's been running up there with the leaders pretty well, even though he has the damage to the rear end of the car when he got in one of those early accidents.
Dale Earnhardt would be 6th in the number 3 car behind Cale Yarborough in 29, I should say.
Boy, Rusty Wallace is, you know, he hasn't looked all that well earlier in the race and through the middle stages. Now he looks like he's got enough to at least hold up there with Bill Elliott and Lake Speed.
The last lap, Jeff Bodine turned at 197.037 miles an hour, almost qualifying speed. And look at Dale Earnhardt work the high side. And Kyle Petty is on the bottom side of the racetrack.
Yeah, he's made up that lap. Now he's got something to go for.
See Ken Schrader down on the inside of Neil Bonnet and Dale Jarrett.
Boy, what traffic. You know, being on the inside of a car is what got Kenny in trouble earlier. And here he is doing the same thing. He's got to be holding his breath right now saying, come on, hang on.
He's working below Neil Bonnet in 75 and Sterling Marlin in 44.
He did leave plenty of space between himself and the car on the outside.
Now Bobby Allison is hooked up right behind Ken Schrader in a tight draft with him. And there's A.J. Foyt right behind Bobby. Looks like Dale Earnhardt may be pinned on the high side as Kyle Petty sneaks below.
Kyle's car working good down on the inside of the racetrack. I think the high side is where Earnhardt wants to be, but Kyle's car is working well down there.
Kyle just kind of turned right up in there. Here comes Ken Schrader again. Boy, nobody's giving an inch.
There you can see 29 laps to go in this race. The first two cars are well ahead of the pack now.
Bobby Allison has done a good job coming from the back of the lead lap to catch that far up into the group with this many laps to go. He stands a chance of improving his position quite a bit more with those tires.
And he's doing it down on the inside and following Schrader around. Of course, they're helping each other there, but Dale Jarrett now has moved down to the inside of the racetrack. As we look out the windshield of Cale Yarborough, that's what he's seeing.
Boy, you can see just rolling up and down.
Oh, look at this.
How close Kyle Petty and Bobby Allison, they touched.
Yeah.
And Ned, you said at the very beginning of the program you thought you would see some bumping and banging, and by golly, there's evidence of it.
And we might see a little more before this thing's over. Look at that.
Yeah. Nobody's going to give an inch, that's for sure. It's too late in the race.
Bumper tag at probably somewhere near 198 miles an hour or so.
What a view that was from Cale Yarborough's car.
Unbelievable.
Look at what he's looking at.
6th and 7th position. Schrader, Bobby Allison, Kyle Petty. There's Lake Speed in car 83. He may get passed here by Schrader. He does.
Yeah.
Now, how about Rusty Wallace, who's on the top of the track, and Schrader to the bottom?
Yeah, they're getting to the front of that pack. They've got a long way to go now because Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons have been pretty much hooked up, pulling away.
In fact, Gary, they're pulling away at almost a second a lap while these cars are racing for position back there side by side. They're just simply motoring away.
Yeah.
So now Schrader has moved to 3rd. 4th is Bobby Allison. 5th is Kyle Petty. 6th is Dale Earnhardt. And Bill Elliott has dropped all the way back to 7th, although he battles alongside with Earnhardt and moves back into 6th. There are your leaders, Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons, but as we indicated, they are pulling away from the rest of the field. Back with more right after this. Bob Jenkins, Gary Nelson, Ned Jarrett, Larry Newbert, Dick Berggren, and Jerry Punch back at Talladega, Alabama International Motor Speedway for the Winston 500. Jeff Bodine in car number 5 leads, and Phil Parsons in 55 is second. Some special guests with Larry Newbert in Pit Central.
Well, Bob, this facility has been very important to the economics of the central Alabama area. And joining me on your right is Bill Neal, who is a special assistant to the governor here in Alabama, and Governor, or rather Senator, and I gave you a promotion, Senator Jim Pruitt. And Senator Pruitt, let me ask you first, how has this racetrack made an impact on the economics of this part of the country?
Of the state or the area? Well, certainly it's a great impact on the state of Alabama. And as I understand, this is near a record attendance today, and that is even better. It brings a world of people. I understand maybe it's way in excess of 100,000 people, and that's fantastic to have for a special event. More than probably average of twice the number of attendance at the big football games state.
So, Bill, economics are a big part of it, but also there's that psychological part. It's very exciting. We're looking at racing here, we're seeing cars 20 strong in drafts. That also means a lot to the surrounding community too, doesn't it?
It certainly does, Larry, and I hope people all over the country are seeing this race, and we certainly would like to invite business people from all over our country to come down to Talladega and see what we have here. Our governor is really a business-minded governor, and we're really open for business. We'd like to see you come down and join us.
Well, Senator Pruitt, I suppose that 20 years ago, stock car racing wasn't what you'd call real big in your household, but now you two probably have favorites. Is there anybody that you're pulling for? I know the Alabama gang has got to be in
Right,
there.
Alabama gang. Also, I'd like to see Richard Petty move up a little bit. Richard was leading the pack 18, 20 years ago, Larry, and I'd like to see him move on out. But certainly, I was here at the groundbreaking, I think about 1968, and the track certainly came a long way from that time.
Well, thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate it, and most significantly, we appreciate what the state of Alabama has done for motor racing. We know that Governor Wallace was very instrumental in getting this facility here, and it's been terrific for the sport. Thank you.
Larry's good to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you, Larry.
Okay, Senator.
Thank you.
All right, now two very good friends off the racetrack, Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt, have probably been talking for the past few days about how they want to run together on the racetrack, but they got a little too close right here.
Boy, they did get close. You could see the smoke coming from Wallace's cars. They touched together, but Earnhardt had the presence of mind to back off just momentarily and let Wallace slip into the slot. Terry Labonte slid up in front of both of them.
Boy, something's got to give when they run that close together at those speeds, and the cars, you know, are marginal on traction. They're trying to get light on the back ends, and when they get that close together, it gets worse. So that was a fine piece of driving by both Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace.
Yeah, the cars are on the verge of being out of control when they go around the turns at these kind of speeds, and especially when they're running in there that close together. So it doesn't take much.
Just like Benny Parsons said early in the broadcast, they're on the ragged edge. There are first and second, Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons. Running third, Ken Schrader. Fourth is Bobby Allison, and fifth is Kyle Petty. Sixth is Bill Elliott. And here is the interval between second and third. Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth are running together, and then we get back to the pack of cars that are running for 7th, 8th, and 9th, and so on.
Well, that is the pack there where they're all jockeying for each inch that they can get. But they're, you know, that's what, 10th, 15th position back there.
Well, Terry Labonte is running in the 7th position as he leads, and from there through 15th, because there are 15 cars in the lead lap.
Yeah, that is something kind of racing to be this far into the race.
Now here's this second pack. Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth right here. Ken Schrader, Bobby Allison, then trailing Kyle Petty, and Bill Elliott. So again, we're seeing cars break off into 2s or 3s or 4 and running together.
Yeah, now Schrader and Bobby Allison have hooked up together and beginning to pull away from Kyle Petty and Bill Elliott. Whether the two Fords can't draft together quite as good as those two General Motors products, I don't know, but they have broken away a little bit.
You know, we've seen earlier in the race, both Bobby Allison and Ken Schrader have problems with somebody right behind them. Bobby Allison in the early stages of the race always was behind somebody. He never wanted somebody behind him. Ken Schrader having problems being in dirty air also. So these two cars, they gotta hold their breath and do the best they can. You can imagine Ken Schrader and both Bobby Allison would like to have some clean air to where they could gain a little bit of ground on Jeff Bodine.
You know, Gary, we don't want to dwell on this Bobby Allison crash last year. I think everybody wants to forget about it, but I think it's interesting to note, and you have some information on exactly what caused that crash. Sure, it was caused when the tire was cut, but why did the tire go down?
Well, you know, there are so many variables in stock car racing, so many things that you really can't trace back. But in that case, the very front of his crankshaft broke off. The harmonic balancer on the front of the engine broke when Bobby was going into the tri-oval, causing that big wreck that we've all seen over and over again on the replays. But when that broke, I mean, it never breaks. Every team runs a new crankshaft at Talladega. Nobody comes here with an old crankshaft. So that means they take the new crankshaft out of the box, put it in the engine, and they come to Talladega to race. When the race is over, they sell it or throw it away because it's usually junk. Well, this was early in the race when Bobby's harmonic balancer broke. His crankshaft broke, cut his tire, caused the wreck. But we started speculating on what could cause that to happen. You know, maybe it got damaged in shipping. Maybe the floor sweeper, when he was sweeping the floor, he bumped the crankshaft, it fell over, hit on the end, caused that fracture. Nobody knew about it. Next morning, the engine builder puts it in the engine. Some small thing down the line happened to that crankshaft that caused that major wreck, caused the carburetor restrictors, caused the side windows, caused the NASCAR to rebuild the fences at these racetracks. Yep. It's amazing to think of what a small thing like that can mean to the sport.
It really is, and we're all so thankful that it didn't turn out to be any more serious than it turned out to be. So we're going to follow the leaders here, Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons, as they come off the fourth corner and onto the tri-oval. This will complete lap number 172, and we'll have 16 laps remaining. Phil Parsons content to draft on Jeff Bodine. They cross the line. We'll see at the distance between second, right there, Phil Parsons, and third.
It's a long way back
and
there.
Fourth.
Boy, look at that.
And sixth. 8.5 seconds.
The Fords have caught back up to Ken Schrader and Bobby Allison.
So it's 8.5 seconds now. We're going to take a commercial break, and then we will be back and do that again to see exactly if that second group of cars is catching Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons. We'll be right back with more from the Winston 500 at Talladega. We are back at Talladega, and there is racing all over the racetrack. Here's Bobby Allison trying to take third position from Ken Schrader. Schrader in 25 and Allison in 12, and Bill Elliott is in number 9, also right there.
They have lost Kyle Petty. He was in that group a little bit ago, but now he has dropped back out of their draft.
And we also might mention, as we watch this tremendous battle for third, that we have a new leader. Phil Parsons has assumed control of this race, but look at the battle for third here. Bobby Allison, remember, he won Daytona and looking for his second super speedway win of the year.
Side-by-side racing, Bobby Allison and Ken Schrader. Both of them don't like dirty air, but they've got to put up with it. They're holding their breath, holding it to the floor, trying for that position.
Now Bobby has lost a couple of positions.
Staying down on the inside did cost him, but it seems like in turn 1 and 2 that the low side of the racetrack might be the fastest side, as he was able to move around Bill Elliott when he went into turn 1.
As we indicated, Phil Parsons has assumed the lead in this race, and here's how it occurred a couple of laps ago off of corner number 2.
Got awfully close as he went on the inside. They ran almost neck and neck down the backstretch, but then Parsons just dipped down to the inside of the racetrack. The tires took hold, and away he went.
Well, he really stuck on that low groove.
But Jeff is right there on his rear spoiler on his back bumper and will not let him get out of sight. We're nearing the closing stages of this race, and it's going to be a Phil Parsons, Jeff Bodine battle to the finish, it would appear.
Boy, it's an aerodynamic shootout here. It's going to be 10 laps to go when they come by. The Oldsmobile and the Chevrolet, both fighting for traction, aerodynamic drag, clean air, all the things that it takes to make a fast lap here. These two cars are both, you know, the old slingshot deal. 5-10 years ago, Phil Parsons would not have passed Jeff Bodine with this few of laps left in the race. He would want to follow. Apparently, Phil Parsons thinks his car is strong enough to hold Jeff off and not worry about Jeff trying to block him, so he just went on around.
All right, now the interval between second and third a few laps ago was 8.5 seconds, and we'll see what it is this time. This pack of now 3 is catching up, and it definitely has widened. 10, 11, yeah, it's about 11.5, so they've lost 3 seconds just in the last 5 laps or so. And Ricky Rudd has blown a motor, it appears, on the tri-oval, and now it's going to bunch the field up as the yellow comes out.
They got to race to the line just in case. Well, there's 10 laps to go. They can make it. I mean, they will restart again.
The leaders are up in the banking at the north end of the racetrack.
Yeah, they're racing through that oil that Ricky Rudd just lost.
Rudd blew the engine here in the tri-oval and dumped some oil. Now here comes Phil Parsons, and it appears as if he is going to lead the race back to the start-finish line, and Jeff tries to get around but cannot. Phil Parsons wins the race, and now the field slows once again under caution for the 7th time this afternoon.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if anyone makes a pit stop. They should be able to go these last 9 laps as far as fuel is concerned, but as far as tires are concerned, well, will cool tires help them? We'll see.
We will be back to answer the question of if there are pit stops and to answer the question who's going to win this race right after this. We hope you've been enjoying the Winston 500 from Talladega, Alabama, being brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Quaker State Motor Oil, the big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And by Pronto, featuring quality auto parts at lower prices. Here's the situation. We're on lap number 180. 180 laps have been completed. There are about 7.5 more laps to go now. The field is on the back stretch. The yellow out because of a problem with Ricky Rudd. He blew an engine on the front stretch. So no pit stops during this caution period, and we're set out for a shootout. Let's go to get some reports from the pit area.
Well, I'm with Waddell Wilson. He's crew chief for Jeff Bodine. You guys were leading. You're in second now. What are you going to do to get back in the lead for the checkered, Waddell?
Well, you know, this is one of those deals where you're not sure where you want to be coming down on the last lap. And Jeff, you know, hopefully can figure out something to do on the last lap to pass him. But, you know, Phil's car is awful strong, and he's running really good. And, you know, it's just going to be a heck of a race from here on out.
Well, you've been talking to Jeff. What is he saying to you? What does he want to do?
Well, we've talked back and forth, discussed all of our options that we have right now and where we think our car might be better than Phil's, or Phil's is stronger than ours, to try to make the last move on the last lap.
Well, Jerry Punch is down pit road. Jerry, what's going on where you are?
Well, a big break for Bobby Allison. This caution coming out. I'm with Bobby's son-in-law and crew member Pat Broyles. And Pat, the question is, can you catch him? How about Phil Parsons and Jeff Bodine?
Bobby says they're pretty stout right now. I just told Bobby on the radio to pick him a partner and go for it, and that's what we're going to do. He won't kid around about it. He's going to go for the lead, and if he can get it, fine. If not, you know, he'll do the best he can.
Well, Bobby told him on the radio, it's here in Alabama. He's going to try a little bit of Hueytown hustle if he can get a drafting partner. He's going to try to make that dash with the checkered flag. That's from Bobby Allison's pits. Let's go to Pit Central and Larry Newber. Larry?
Well, Jerry, during the last break, there was some speculation among all of us on this broadcast that maybe Jeff Bodine moved over and let Phil Parsons get by. Remember, the pass came with 15 laps to go. I am one of those who kind of supports that theory, because Phil had radioed into his crew about 5 laps previous and said, I'm going to wait till there's 10 laps to go before I show my hand. He was planning on trying to make the pass with 10 to go, but Jeff gave it to him, question mark, with 15 to go.
Well, there's some interesting stuff going on the racetrack right now as A.J. Foyt has collided with a car out there. I don't know who it was, but they banged under some caution. Let's see what happened. They were just trying to get in line, and here's a replay of it. See Foyt. Yeah,
he really got out of shape. Hit Alan Kowicki in car number 7.
Yeah.
Boy.
I think Alan might have suffered some damage on that little incident. I don't know whether AJ did or not. Well, anyway, the auto racing is going to continue here on ESPN this afternoon after our broadcast of the Winston 500 here, which will be over in about 7 more laps. We'll have the second Formula One race of 1988, the Grand Prix of San Marino, same-day coverage from Imola, Italy. That's right after our coverage of this race here at Talladega. So stay with us for more auto racing on ESPN. Well, what do you think, guys? Who's going to win?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a tough decision. I'm going to go with Parsons. I think that he has the right position on the racetrack.
Gary?
Well, up to me, huh? I got to take Jeff Bodine. I think Jeff has shown a lot of strength. I think he's in the catbird seat on that second position if he can hold it. Bobby Allison sitting there is a very smart driver, but Jeff Bodine and Phil Parsons, I got to take Jeff.
Okay, I just want everybody to know that I picked Phil Parsons to win this thing last night. Dick Berggren, quickly.
Go with Bodine. I think he's quickest right now.
Jerry Punch?
Well, I'll tell you, I think Bobby Allison may have a little bit left for him. I don't believe they're actually showing all they've got, but Bobby told him, he said, the only guy I'm really worried about is Phil Parsons. Phil is awfully stout.
Larry?
Positioning on the final lap, Jeff Bodine.
There you go. Variance of opinions here, and here comes the green flag, and we are back at it. 182 laps to go. 6 to go to the checkered flag. Who will it be? Stay tuned and settle back for some excitement in the last 6 laps of the Winston 500.
You know who my favorite, sentimental favorite is Ken Schrader. The job he's done today driving that car, I'd love to see him win, but we'll see what happens there.
Bobby Allison, remember, if he wins this race, will pick up a $100,000 bonus, and he'll be 2/3 of the way through the Winston Million. And here is the scramble for position as these guys are trying to sort things out behind the three guys who have taken off from the rest.
Well, there are a lot of positions to be determined back in there. There are still 15 cars in the lead lap, so there's a lot of jockeying going on.
Look at how tight it is. The dust from the oil dry that they put down covering Ricky Rudd's oil from the blown motor. There's 5 laps to go now when they get to the start-finish line.
Even those who have become inebriated and passed out are standing for the final 5 laps of this race.
They've got their friends propping them up for the finish.
That's right, and their eyes open. Again, Phil Parsons, Jeff Bodine, and Bobby Allison running in that order with now less than 5 laps to go down the backstretch. Let's see what happens.
Bobby Allison in there really throws a wrinkle into it because Jeff now has to think about protecting his position also. It was earlier just Phil Parsons and Jeff Bodine. After this caution, Bobby really got a break.
And he's such a good drafter, he was able to pick up on them and stay right there, so he is in position to win this thing.
Well, you see the drivers going through the oil dry that was put down in the tri-oval when Ricky Rudd's engine let go. They crossed the stripe, completing lap number 184. There are 4 laps to go.
A lot of strategy going on, and you know, what do? You just do your best, give it your best shot, and hope you get to the line first.
Can you imagine what's going through Phil Parsons' mind right now? These guys behind him, they've tasted victory in Winston Cup racing. Phil Parsons never has. In fact, his best finish in a Winston Cup race ever was earlier this year at Daytona when he finished 3rd. He might win his first Winston Cup event here at Talladega and continue kind of a tradition. So many drivers have won their first Winston Cup race here at Talladega. It could happen.
One of the keys, the lead driver, Phil Parsons, is going to be watching the hands of Jeff Bodine on the steering wheel. In his rearview mirror, he's going to be looking at Jeff Bodine's hands on that last lap to see if he's going to go outside or inside, and then he's going to try to protect that position.
You can hear the crowd cheering their favorite driver.
Boy, it's come down to a shootout. These 3. Should I go inside? No, better not yet. Let me see if he blocks me. Yeah, Phil pulled down.
One thing that Phil hopes happens is that Bobby Allison will try to pass Jeff Bodine for 2nd, and of course that would open it up for him.
Boy, they're all standing. You know what? Most of them are partial.
Look at Phil go low on the racetrack.
He's broken away a little bit.
A little bit lower line than normal.
Yeah, now the 25 and 11 car began to catch him too.
Schrader and Terry Labonte may be a factor in this race.
Oh, what are we going to do? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars going to race for the finish line. 2 laps to go.
Less than 2 laps to go. Parsons, Bodine, Bobby Allison, Ken Schrader, Terry Labonte, right there.
Don't go away, folks. This is going to be a heck of a finish.
It's nail-biting time.
You know, the Bobby Allison, being from Alabama, this being his hometown track, everybody's cheering for Bobby.
You got to think so, not only for that reason, but because of his accident here last year, and what a good comeback, so to speak, that would be. He did, of course, race here at this track last July, but nevertheless, to come back and win this race a year later would really be something. The white flag is out from Harold Kinder, the official starter for NASCAR. Here we go on the final lap. 2.66 miles to go. Will it be one of 5 drivers? Let's see who wins it. Parsons leads now. Bobby Allison is on the high side of the racetrack. Very high in turn number 2. The battle is for 3rd spot. Ken Schrader and Jeff Bodine go at it.
Bobby got that run going up high. He got some momentum.
Here comes Bobby Allison. Phil Parsons goes low on the racetrack in an attempt to block Bobby Allison from making a move. They go into turn number 3 in single file formation. Bobby Allison is 2nd. Jeff Bodine is 3rd. Then Terry Labonte and Ken Schrader. They come off of the 4th corner into the banking of the tri-oval. Phil Parsons has the lead. Bobby Allison running 2nd. If Allison is going to make a move, he's going to have to do it now. He cannot do it. Phil Parsons is going to win his first Winston Cup race. There's a checkered flag. Parsons wins. Allison 2nd. Bodine 3rd. Labonte 4th. And Ken Schrader is 5th. And there was a tremendous battle for position behind that group of cars with Sterling Marlin and Bill Elliott going at it. But the story has been told, and Phil Parsons has conquered his first Winston Cup race.
The checkered flag came out along with the yellow flag.
There's a car limping toward the pit area.
Late speed apparently had a problem. We got into somebody on that very last lap.
There he is.
He's coming down. He's going to come on down pit road and take the checkered flag. He can do that. Of course, that will let him finish in the lead lap. But the right front tire is flat on late speed's car, so that will let him finish in the lead lap. He's running up there at the top.
Phil Parsons from Denver, North Carolina, originally from Detroit, has brought home the Crown Skull Oldsmobile to victory lane here at Talladega. We will be back with a winner interview in just a moment. This was his 111th career Winston Cup start, and he won it. It was an exciting afternoon of racing from the green flag to the checkered flag. At the finish, there were 5 cars going for it for the win. The win came down to Phil Parsons, his very first Winston Cup victory, and it came in the Winston 500 here at the world's fastest racetrack. He is in victory lane right now and is soon going to be taking off the helmet and climbing out of the car. And you know that when he steps out of that car and he begins talking with us in victory lane, he is going to be one very happy young man. Phil Parsons, the younger brother of Benny.
And I think he figured that if his first win would come maybe here at Talladega.
Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, Phil Parsons, first of all, partner, congratulations on a fantastic race all afternoon.
Well, thank you, Jerry. I'd just like to, first of all, say hello to Dave Jarrett with Oldsmobile. He's a good friend of ours. He's going through some problems. Dave, we're all behind you. We're glad to get this Oldsmobile in victory circle. But go on, I just can't thank Mr. Bannon with U.S. Tobacco, Crown, Detroit Gasket, Oldsmobile. Every one of these guys back here, I mean, this is the biggest day of my life, and they're all responsible, along with about 25 people that if they wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. Benny, Tex, and Randy, and Odie, and just everybody.
Well, your car owner, Leo Jackson, did a heck of a job. He's been mechanic of the race, given the mechanic of the race award. But early on today, you had some trouble. That early running out of fuel probably had your heart skip a few beats.
Well, yeah, it did. We knew we had one of the best 2 or 3 cars, so we felt like we could get our lap back. I hate it happened like it did. Schrader was, trying to get by me, and he got into me and spun out. But I tell you, we're just, no matter what happened, we're just tickled to death.
What do you think those last few laps when the caution came out? I mean, I know you had to take a big gulp when you saw that yellow flag.
I didn't want any caution flag. I knew me and Jeff had the 2 best cars, and I felt like it should be decided amongst us 2. But he did a heck of a job. But just at the last, he got shuffled out there, and I just watching the mirror trying to keep them all behind me.
The Detroit, Michigan native in his 111th start gets his first ever Winston Cup win, winning the Winston 500 here at the Alabama International Motor Speedway. Phil Parsons at victory lane.
And our winner circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. Phil Parsons beat Bobby Allison, Jeff Bodine, Terry Labonte, and Ken Schrader to the checker. We'll be right back. The top 5 finishers in the Winston 500. Phil Parsons wins. Bobby Allison finishes in 2nd position. 3rd went to Jeff Bodine. Terry Labonte finishes in 4th, and Ken Schrader spun early in the race and finished 5th. Coming up next here on ESPN, the 2nd Formula One race of 1988 as the Formula One circuit visits San Marino, Imola, Italy for the Grand Prix of San Marino. Stay tuned for that right after this. Well, our congratulations to Phil Parsons on his very first Winston Cup race win here at Talladega. And my thanks to Gary Nelson and Ned Jarrett for their help in the booth this afternoon. Also to Dick Berggren and to Jerry Punch, who worked the pits for us, and as usual, Larry Newber at Pit Central. We hope you enjoyed today's telecast. Phil Parsons again wins at Talladega. For now, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone.